Anyway, Freaky Friday, ceasefire process continues. TikTok ban pushed to Trump admin by Dems. SCOTUS follows TikTok ban, confirms TikTok ban. Xiao Hongshu reacts. What else? You were China posting way before the TikTok Zoomers? Yeah, I know. I reposted this TikTok. Poster for checks on Xiao Hongshu? No, I will not be doing that for the time being. Yeah, we got the Union doc as well. I just haven't had time to watch the Union doc, so I've just been skipping it, but hopefully we can watch it today. Freaky Friday, ceasefire process continued. TikTok ban pushed by Trump admin by Dems. Pushed to Trump admin by Dems. SCOTUS confirms TikTok ban. Xiao Hongshu reacts, and so much more. Get in now. Stop yapping and more gaming. Pet Kaya more. Hug your mother. Okay, guys, I was kidding. You don't have to actually be like. You don't actually have to be annoying. You know, I didn't mean like. Chatters took what I said. Chatters took what I said to heart, and we're like, oh, you want me to be parasocial? Like, I can show you parasocial. I can show you micromanager. Like, you will never. I will get so crazy. I will get so crazy with my micromanagement that it will destroy your life. As a union organizer and a film school dropout, I have some major criticisms of the union film. Yeah, micromanage documentaries that I haven't even watched yet that I'm saying I might watch in the future. It's crazy that the chatters actually, it can't help it. Freaky Friday, ceasefire process continued. TikTok ban pushed to Trump admin by Dems. Here, retweet this now. What? Ceasefire on your Twitter post? What? Oh, I misspelled it. There's a typo. Not a typo, but I updated it. Okay, shut up. Ceasefire was broken already. It hasn't started yet, and Israel always ends up destroying. Israel always ends up blowing stuff up right before the ceasefire is implemented. Anyway, yeah, this is yeah, I was Xiao Hongshu posting before it was cool. You know what I mean? I was scrolling to Xiao Hongshu yesterday, and they literally have a term for a small head, broad shoulders called double door refrigerator. Is TikTok actually getting banned for real? I mean, we'll talk about that. I still don't think it'll get banned, but why is he like this? You see, Todic is now in LA. You got a link out for B-ball. He hates playing ball with me. I'm gonna be honest with you. China's official state media, People's Daily, recommended on American TikTokers version to Xiao Hongshu. Red note: President Xi says the hope for U.S.-China relations lies with the peoples. In the age of globalization and the internet, our community of shared destiny will only become closer. Rather than call them refugees, let's call them villagers of Village Earth who have found a new home. I love that. Wonderful message. I'm on board with that. It's always so funny because, like, regardless of your criticisms of the Chinese government, and some are very valid, you'll have the Chinese government be like, yeah, we need to do prosperity for all people. And then there's immediately like 700 people in the replies being like, what about prosperity at Tiananmen Square? What about the Uyghur Muslims? And it's like, you click on their profile and they're literally like, Israel should go harder. Israel should go harder on killing these terrorist children. And it's like, dude, I don't think you care about the Muslims at all. What? Like, what, you just wanted to destroy any opportunity of people just having like a good time with one another across cultures, you know? So much of the CIA's work being flushed down the toilet. Yeah, I mean, not really. I don't think you guys understand the mindset of the average American in terms of like how they see the Chinese, okay? They're not white enough, bro. They're not white. The average American does not look at a Chinese person and go, oh, they're just like normal. They're normal people just like us. I don't think you understand. The average American still despises the Chinese. They think the Chinese are like an alien species. Okay.
And let me tell you, I've been taken up to the third heaven. I've been jacked into the big plan. I've seen it. I can't even compute all of it. It's so fantastical. You've not seen nothing. You ain't heard nothing. You ain't smelled nothing like this. I don't have words to tell you. But I tell you, anybody tries to get in the way of the incredible plan the big guys got for us has got me pissed, and I'm just begging to stay on the team, man. Just put me in the game, coach. Whatever you say, coach. I know I'm weak. I know I'm pathetic.
That is what she said. Unironically, when Mao sent his family to the mines, he said, put me back in, coach. I will learn. I will atone for my reactionary sentiment. I will atone. I will learn the process. I will learn the ways in which the rural farmland can be improved. And I will use that. I will use that personal experience in an effort to uplift, all of China.
I'm so lucky you made me. What do I do, Bob? Like a hunting dog, man. Just take me out of the house. Just turn me on them. Just tell me what I got to do. Tell me how I serve you. Tell me what I can do for you right now. Woo! And let me tell you,
You agree this sudden popularity of Red Note as a Chinese psyop, right, has to be no? No, I think a lot of people love their treats. No, I genuinely think people just love their treats so much that they think it was like TikTok's algorithm was so good that the very fact that the American government is planning on banning it made the very fact that the American government said that it was planning on banning it made people go, okay, well, I'm going to find another Chinese application to go and utilize. And I think that there is also a great overemphasis on, how many people are actually going to Xiaohongshu, or how many people are actually like learning to love their Chinese counterparts. That's it. It's not like a psyop. Not everything has to be this like broad, like secret initiative, And I say this about like the American government too. Sometimes you guys will say that about like even the American government, where you're like, oh my God, this must be a psyop by the American government. It's like, nah, it's not. It's just how things are. Once you understand what human beings are motivated by and recognize that most human beings have the exact same motivations in general, I think it makes a lot of things easier to dissect, easier to comprehend. Like the fact that Erewhon is so expensive for a smoothie, why would you ever get a smoothie at Erewhon? That's your fault. Dude, it's like going into the Equinox sauna in West Hollywood and not sucking a cock. You're there to suck cock, okay? You can't be like, wow, why are there dicks out here expecting to be sucked? Like, you can't go into an Erewhon and get a smoothie and be like, oh, it's so expensive. Like, bitch, you knew what the price point was. Why are you going to Erewhon even at all? Fair. That's a good take, Hassan. That's a good take, early Hassan. I think these videos, what is Will Neff saying? Why are you saying adding Will Neff? I'm not a chainer. I'm not a China hater. I love Xi. I just think that you're so good at spotting American psyops, but I think we're having trouble seeing psyops from non-Western countries. Dude, you have to also understand, what is the psyop? Like, what is the psyop that people go, oh, wow, Chinese people are just like us? Like Xiaohongshu, out of the many different applications readily available to the Chinese population, Xiaohongshu, from what I understand, is also like the Chinese urban, the urban Chinese class that is like more liberal, more like many of them have traveled to America. Some of them actually went to school in America. It's probably like it just happened to be like a perfect way for Americans to be introduced to Chinese culture, because like a lot of the people there speak English. Okay. I don't think that it was like a deliberate, I don't think that it was like a deliberate psyop. Also, what is the psyop? The psyop there is what? To make Americans think Chinese people are not, to make Americans think that Chinese people are not like weird aliens that live in this like hellish dystopia, and actually just like normal people that have Pinterest accounts in the same way that you do. Is that what it is? Is that the actual psyop? Like, what's the psyop? What's the goal here? You know what I mean? That's what I don't understand. Americans interact with urban Chinese who studied in the US, and we're surprised they're the same people. Yeah, that's the funniest part about it, is that like the people that they're interacting with on Xiaohongshu, for the most part, are people that they literally did not interact with in college, but had every opportunity to do so. Because half of those people on Xiaohongshu, from what I understand, are already people that like went to American schools and then went back to China, you know? So you're not meeting anyone new that you, I mean, it's just that because it's a Chinese app, I think that people are probably more, I think because it's a Chinese app and the app is literally in Mandarin, it was not created for a Western audience, that it quite literally is designed to, for Chinese people to be more free about their perspective. Because as far as like talking to Chinese people living in the Western world, and this is something that like my Chinese chatters will probably also, will openly admit here, okay, is that many Chinese people are a little afraid of, expressing any sort of pro-China sentiment in the West. I wonder why that is the case. Like, I remember talking to Water, Jake's girlfriend, for the first time about like my actual, my honest opinions on China. and she was legitimately shocked. She thought I was like messing with her. She thought I was joking. And I was like, no, I'm not joking. Like, this is what I truly believe. And she's like, I've never heard, she was literally like, I've never heard an American say that because most Americans have like an insane number of like crazy opinions, and this is, I think, I will say this, the most charitable interpretation is this, okay? We have the capacity in the United States of America to look at other countries that do the exact same thing that we do, but then somehow treat it as though it's like this super secret, super nefarious, super evil thing. It's the dynamic that I've mentioned before. It's the dynamic between gulags and work camps versus slave labor in prisons in the United States of America. People criticize slave labor in prison in the United States of America, but many people understand it. Many people think it's good. Many people actually defend that principle. Whereas like gulags or work camps where, 10 billion people are dying every day in the salt mines. It's the same thing. You just gave it a different name in order to say like it's scary when our foreign adversaries are doing it. If you have a criticism for it here, then you should have a criticism for it there. But many people don't have a criticism for it here and actually think it's like an entirely different thing over there. That is my frustration for the most part, because there are valid criticisms that you can launch against China, and I do in many instances, but I always take the position that this is still like normal state stuff, right? Normal states, like big states, this is how they operate. And then people will turn around and say, you're clueless. I know. I'm so clueless. I know. How could I ever? Instead of saying that, every state has shortcomings, including but not limited to China, okay? I should instead just lap up like insane things. China's not a good country. America has issues, but that does not make China's human rights abuses any better. There is no point where I said China's human rights abuses are any better. This is what I mean. You're missing the point that I'm making here. The point that I'm making here is that I criticize America all the time. I have no motion in actually changing things here. And I criticize the administrative state of the Chinese government as well. But the difference is a lot of Americans, a lot of people in the Western world in general, genuinely think that it's just like so much worse over there. It's so much scarier over there. My job is to try to explain to you that, like, no, there are issues in China. Of course there are. Every single state has a litany of complications, a litany of issues, and that it is not all that different from the issues that we foresee and we experience here. And in some instances, not as bad even, right? That's the difference. I think one of the greatest examples that I can deliver to you in this duality that we talk about, one of the greatest examples I can point to is the fact that if Israel operated in the brutal surveillance state mechanisms with re-education camps that were set up for what the Chinese government perceived as the separatist movement of like radicalized Muslims in Xinjiang, if they had done that in Israel, I would still be critical of what Israel is doing, just as I was of what China was doing. But the entire global, the entire Western world would declare Israel to be the most peaceful nation on the planet, and would be falling over themselves to offer Benjamin Netanyahu or whoever implemented that as many Nobel Peace Prizes as they physically possibly can. Why'd you ban that guy who said you're clueless? Do you understand what I mean? I unbanned him. I don't know why you banned him, Anaphase. Do you get what I'm saying? Like, think about it. Think about what Israel's been doing in Gaza right now. Although the surveillance mechanisms that were implemented and the re-education camps and all this stuff was like completely unacceptable in Xinjiang, okay? If Israel operated in the way that the Chinese government operated against like what they called the separatist Uyghurs, okay, that were radicalized or whatever, if Israel operated that way against the Palestinian population in Gaza with the interest of still full-blown integration, everyone in the world would be literally cherishing Israel as the greatest country on the planet. Do you understand? This right here is perhaps one of the best examples of this double standard, this hypocrisy. Hassan, brother, why can't Vietnam make such a great social media app if China can do it? We never talk about how Vietnam is one of the technologically advanced Southeast Asia, bro, right? Yeah, I love Vietnam. Most countries dislike Israel. What are you on? Yeah, we're not talking about the global south, big dog. We're talking about countries in the Western world that still dominate the planet, okay? Whether we like it or not, whether we want to, you know, there is, whether you like it or not, whether I like it or not, doesn't change that reality that like the Western world still dominates the globe. Okay? Anyway, this guy said you're clueless and then nothing else, which is sad. And then when mods ban these guys, which is understandable because they're derailers, they will turn around and be like, oh, your mods are so censorious. I get it, but how can you be so sure that the Uyghur Muslims are really treated better than the Palestinians? Wait, what? I'm sorry. Have you seen what's going on in Gaza? Is this bait? Like, what are you talking about? The connotation is that China is much more secretive. Yeah, that's ridiculous. You think China was doing a bombing campaign in Xinjiang where they dropped multiple nukes worth of munitions into Xinjiang with the express purpose of like destroying every building while they simultaneously trapped the entire captive population of Xinjiang? No, you know what they did? They built high-speed rail into Xinjiang and worked specifically for integration. And to be fair, that process was incredibly brutal, and it still continues to a certain degree. Like the surveillance state was unacceptable, the re-education camps were unacceptable. I don't disagree with that at all, especially because when the Chinese government decides to do something, okay, the Chinese government decides to do something, well, everyone's going to have to follow. That's it. That's just kind of the modus operandi, to the best of my ability of like explaining this to people. If they decide to do something, you just got to do it. That's it, right? And a lot of people, I think, in the process, a lot of innocent people in the process also get captured by this dragnet operation, which is like something that I, on principle, take issue with. But it's kind of, I was listening to this Chinese scholar talk about Mao and like what Mao did, right? Oh, shit. I gotta get the door real quick. 1 second. Anyway, we'll talk about this in a. I'll continue talking about Mao in a moment. But in the process of building a dam, Mao was like, "Yeah, this entire city's gonna move," and they did. There's nothing you can do about it. But now that dam is the dam that gives water to Beijing from the north.
Upheld the law that could ban TikTok. The justices ruled the law does not violate the First Amendment. The popular video sharing app now faces a ban in the U.S. unless its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, sells to a U.S.-based company in the next 2 days. Let's bring in senior Washington reporter Devin Dwyer and ABC News legal contributor Brian Buckmeyer for more. Devin, does TikTok have any legal recourse left, or is this it? Sell or be banned?
Well, this is the final word on this law, Diane, and the Supreme Court just moments ago handed down a unanimous opinion that was not signed, meaning that it was supported by the entire court. We don't know who wrote it, but it does look like Chief Justice John Roberts saying that TikTok's argument that this law passed by large bipartisan majorities of Congress, signed by President Biden, does not violate the First Amendment rights of the company or its 170 million users here in the United States. The justices explain at length how a law like this one meets a significant government interest of protecting the United States national security for a number of concerns over Chinese collection of Americans' data and also their alleged use of the platform to spread propaganda in the United States. And therefore, by this decision, the Supreme Court effectively says that this law can stand and the ban against TikTok can go into effect on Sunday unless the parent company ByteDance, that's the Chinese-owned company, sells its stake to any other buyer that is not a foreign adversary of the United States. And there's, of course, a lot of swirling headlines about the possibilities there, but the Supreme Court definitively saying that this law can stand and a ban can go forward, Diane.
Brian, I know you're still reading through the decision, but what do you make so far of how the justices came to this decision?
So when it comes to First Amendment violations or the allegations of such, what the courts will do is look at what is being banned and how it is being banned. What they're describing is what's called a content-neutral ban, meaning that the government didn't go out and say, you know what, any information that talks about X or Y should be banned. That would have a higher level of scrutiny. What they're saying is this is actually not a direct ban. If anything, it's telling a company that they need to divest in.
Yeah. Cope. Cope. I personally think is so ridiculous. I think it's so ridiculous that they have the audacity to claim that this isn't like a ridiculous enforcement. The express purpose of taking TikTok away from its current owners. Like, it's just, oh, it's not just a ban. Oh, it's not a ban. We just want them to divest and change the product entirely, or at least like they can't retain ownership over it. I'm so confused. Is Hassan really saying the Chinese didn't treat the Uyghurs badly? Wait, what? Was there a point where I said that? Where did I say that? What happens to people's ears? There's never been a single moment where I have said that. I just got here. Okay. Where did you hear that? Can you clip any part of my commentary on this where you thought I said that? Where does this come from? I genuinely don't understand. I feel like this is just such a strange phenomena that you have to deal with on a daily freaking basis, dude. I don't get it. Like, what's going on? How does this occur so frequently? I thought the person you were talking to about Palestine was talking about them in comparison. Yes, there is no comparison to be made between an act of genocide. Like, both are bad, but one is significantly better. And the reason why I gave the example of what Israel-Palestine is because if Israel was doing to the Palestinians what the Chinese government did to the Uyghur Muslims in Xinjiang, the entire Western world would be celebrating the humanity of the Israeli government, the morality of the Israeli government. While I consider both to be unacceptable, one is glaringly, obviously, significantly worse than the other, considering that every single structure is still standing in Xinjiang, including but not limited to the Chinese government's surveillance apparatus exclusively working with dragnet operations that are completely unacceptable, re-education camps, rather than complete death and destruction of all people in the region with the express purpose of ethnic cleansing. It's an insane comparison to make. It's a totally and utterly insane comparison to make. Anyway, it's crazy because it's people will look at Hanifying mosques or whatever and consider it cultural genocide, which I understand. I think there's a decent argument to make that. Okay. Meanwhile, Israel's blowing up the mosque in its entirety. Obviously one is simply if you have criticism for one and nothing to say about the other, as a matter of fact, you defend the other thing, then you are not a morally consistent or a serious person at all. You just don't like China and you love Israel. That's it. While I still criticize the Chinese government, okay, it's ridiculous to make this comparison as though what Israel's doing is somehow better, or even in the same world, even in the same universe.
In order to be able to participate in their company within the United States, or they're completely gone. They're not selecting specific speech. And so when
a dragnet operation is when you go into an area, it's kind of like what the American government does in terms of their immigrant apprehension programs, where they go into an area and they suspect people of being political dissidents or being undocumented immigrants in the case of the United States of America, and they cast a wide net and basically drag everyone and prosecute every single person without previously conducting an investigation. It's the reversal of the normal process, where if someone is supposed to detain you, they're supposed to detain you after they've conducted an investigation, or at least have probable cause to detain you because they suspect you of doing a crime. It is, by my understanding, a violation of international humanitarian law anyway. And yes, the Chinese government absolutely did do that, for the record. I'm not like an Adrian Zen's defender or anything like that, but let's be real. Now, having said that, it is unimaginably hypocritical for any American to sit around and just be like, that's really messed up. Also, I support Israel. It's just ridiculous. You know what I mean? Or I give a lot more permission to Israel to do whatever they're doing. But I do think that most of these people are not looking for some integrity or intellectual consistency. They're just simply looking for a way to move your attention away from the wrongdoings of America, because understandably, a lot of people want to think that our government is just not responsible for a metric ton of evil, but simply they're doing that because there's just no other option. They really don't want to do that. but they just have to sometimes. When in fact, these past 15 months should have shown every single person that, like, no, we do love the violence. Like, we genuinely, we genuinely don't mind it. We actually like it.
Doing that, the court is saying, one, this is technology that we're not too familiar with. We're rushing in some sense to get the answer out here. Two, this is content neutral, and it's not about the specific speech that's being made, but the manner in which this data is being collected. And as Devin pointed out, the security risks that are put forward here and that the government is worried about outweighs that of the risk of violating or potentially violating First Amendment rights. So it's well written out. I'm still kind of going through it, but that seems to be the consensus as to why we're here.
So because the ban is aimed more at...
There is nothing funnier about this, and it has such a funny Western world flavor to it, where they just have to do this legalese, right, in an effort to make it seem as though there is like a valid reason. And this is not disruptive, and it's not like purely an insane move that the American government is engaging in that's like ultimately censorious, right? Xenophobic and censorious, because that's precisely what it is. It's xenophobic, it's anti-competition, it's censorious. It's all three. It's the triple Monty. It goes against like the principle of American enterprise. It goes against the principle of freedom of speech. That's what it is. But because we have to always behave in a way where like this is done within the confines of a legal structure, it's not pure autocratic control. It's actually done at the best. It's actually done within the legal structure. So it's actually totally permissible. The media and all of these like legal scholars have to play this song and dance of like trying to find some sort of legal reason for it that makes this appropriate. The reality of the matter is there are no backdoors into TikTok because it is at the end of the day a Chinese corporation. There are no ways in which the American government can control the flow of information on TikTok. Okay. But also on top of that, TikTok has an incredible algorithm that is better than all of the other algorithms combined. And the American tech CEOs are desperately interested in either undermining said algorithm, destroying it, or purchasing it so it becomes an American competitor. It is in the hands of an American CEO so that they can use this as a weapon to wield down the line. Okay, does the same go for Tencent? Never heard you talk about Tencent ever? No, I have talked about Tencent quite a bit. I've actually warned that the American government will probably go after Tencent in the same manner. You know, why aren't you upset that China has blocked Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram? Because I'm not fucking Chinese. Hello? Because I'm not Chinese. Does it make you, does it strike you as odd? Do I look Chinese to you? I know I fucking pop off with the red sun in the sky when I sing it. So you must have thought I was Chinese. I'm American. This is another thing that I can't describe to people. For some reason, I'm like, dude, I'm an American citizen. I'm a tax-paying American citizen. Okay, I pay a fuckload in my taxes too. And I have a decent amount of motion, right? I have a decent amount of motion in this, in a community with like, you know, tens of thousands of like-minded people. And I can't even get the fucking Democratic Party to do the right thing to win a goddamn election. What makes you think I have any motion in China? I'm trying to fix my fucking backyard. And you're over here being like, but what about the Chinese government not allowing Facebook? Like, I don't know. That's not all right, dude. They should, okay? All right, what can I do about that? What can you do about that? Are you Chinese? So weird. Like, it's such a weird thing to just be like, well, it seems like the Chinese government is censorious. I know they are. And I disagree with that. Okay. I've openly talked about this many times. I think that China, considering that they are a global hegemonic superpower at this point, do not need to be as censorious. It's understandable if you're like a tiny island nation in the ass cheeks of the most violent superpower on the planet. It's understandable in that situation when that like most violent superpower is constantly waged war upon you, both economic war in the form of a massive embargo since your successful revolution, okay? But like, yeah, if you're China, you have a lot more bandwidth for free speech. They don't do it. It's not up to me. I can't do anything about it. But ironically enough, I can't even do anything about the American government. And the irony is, you guys think the American government is democratic. You think the American government and our current structure actually cares about the majority opinion. It clearly does not. Because if it did, first of all, the abortion ban would have never taken place. If the American government or the American structures of governance actually cared in any way, shape, or form about the wishes of the majority, TikTok wouldn't be getting banned right now. None of it matters. We wouldn't be funding Israel's genocide. None of that matters. But when I'm, as an American political commentator, when I'm trying to describe this stuff to you, go, but what about China banning Facebook? Yeah, that's wrong. That's bad. That's messed up. They should also have their boomers get their brains warped by AI slop on Facebook. They should do that, okay? I agree with you. But what can I do? Am I Chinese? No, shut the fuck up. There you go. Meanwhile, the Mark Dick Zuckerberg is running around the Joe Rogan Experience to be like, yeah, I hate trans people. I promise. We're not doing any fact checks no more. We hate fact checking. We hate fact checking. And it's like, okay, like, I don't even want my parents to be on Facebook. And you're like, no, the Chinese have to be on Facebook. Like, no one should be on Facebook. I'm over here trying to get you guys to literally implement Chinese Communist Party style restrictions on your parents' internet consumption so that their brains are not so goddamn warped and they don't think that like Korean Jesus is saving dogs from a flood that took place because that's the only thing that shows on your Facebook timeline, okay? And you're like, no, the Chinese must enjoy the Facebook AI slop. It's crazy. Half of your parents believe in chemtrails. Half of your parents became anti-vaxxers because of the lack of regulation and no regulatory standards whatsoever implemented on these platforms that just feed them full of goddamn slop. And you're over here being like, we need to fuck the Chinese brains in the same way.
Data collection and who owns the app versus what kind of speech is happening on it. It's not a First Amendment violation.
Correct. And when you talk about First Amendment, you often talk about how someone is being limited, what is being limited, and what means it's doing so. And it seems like the law here navigated those rules of First Amendment violations and the law in a way that the Supreme Court said that this is not about First Amendment, this is not a violation, and that there is an interest in which the government does have in protecting.
Yeah, like I said, the funniest aspect of this is that, like, people will be like, well, the Chinese government bans Facebook. Okay, that's wrong. But you understand that that's wrong. So is your argument that it's only wrong if China does it, but it's right when America does it? Like, what is the argument there? Do you think it's wrong or do you think it's right? Do you see what I'm saying? Because that's what it is. At the end of the day, it's precisely what it is. It's like they don't want such a successful social media company to be owned by a foreign adversary, a big foreign, scary foreign adversary. That's it, okay? That's it. That's it. They have no backdoors. There's no way for them to control the flow of information. And the straw that broke the camel's back objectively was the ADL doing a final push because they showed how much teens were being radicalized about the Israel stuff, where there is this massive divergence between those who are under the age of 35 and those who are over the age of 35 at this point with respect to how they analyze the genocide of the Palestinians in the hands of Israel with our tax dollars. That was it. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. Donald Trump's administration wanted to ban TikTok. People have been wanting to ban TikTok for quite some time for the reasons that I mentioned. Okay, there are multiple different factors at play here. Other social media tech giants want to own TikTok, understand its algorithm, and want to basically not have that be competition. Okay. That's why YouTube Shorts is popping off. That's why Instagram Reels is popping off. Like, they're trying to actively TikTokify their own social media platforms. But because they can't outcompete TikTok, they want to eliminate it. On the other hand, from the State Department interest, they're worried that, you know, TikTok is not controllable. There is no flow of information that they can control on that platform. So they don't like that kids are getting radicalized. Okay? Then they claim that it's because, like, oh, well, actually, they could just, like, have compromising data on people that inevitably become like, you know, members of the security apparatus or senators or whatever, but they're actually using, you know, if they're on TikTok, then like the Chinese government can blackmail them down the line. And it's like, none of our data is actually private. They could just go to a data broker if they want to do that anyway. It's ridiculous. The irony, of course, is, and this is the reason why I don't think TikTok will be banned inevitably, is because it has too many American institutional investors that make money off of it, okay? That's why I think it's like ridiculous that these guys are even having this conversation at all. But yeah, I mean, this is it. I've played this before. We've heard the ADL private conversations before, but the notion that like 7 million small business owners have popped off of TikTok, you're just going to cast them all aside, and the billions of dollars in revenue generated off TikTok, you're just going to throw it aside because it's owned by the Chinese. It's owned by a certain percentage of it is owned by the Chinese government or ByteDance, which then still has to go back to the Chinese government and do whatever the Chinese government wants, is ridiculous.
Why has the PR been so awful? I know that's not your area of expertise, but you have to have some thoughts on that, which is, I mean, as you've said, why has Hamas disappeared in terms of public perception? An offer is on the table to have a ceasefire, and yet the world is screaming about Israel. It's like, why aren't they screaming about Hamas? Accept the ceasefire, bring home the hostages. Instead, it's all the other way around.
Why won't they eat our propaganda as readily any longer? Why won't the kids believe our propaganda any longer? That's the name of the game here. That's what the actual point of contention is here. Okay? You don't get it. You might never will. TikTok sheds light on the horrors of the genocide that Israel is committing, and that is horrible. Facebook empowers genocide like how they did in Myanmar, and that's obviously good. Yeah, I don't get it.
Typically, the Israelis are good at PR. What's happened here? How have they and we been so ineffective at communicating the realities there? And
we're on an intravenous feed of information with new impulses, inputs every millisecond. And of course, the way this is played out on social media has dominated the narrative. And you have a social media ecosystem environment in which context, history, facts get lost, and the emotion, the impact.
They're not even talking about like context, history, and facts, by the way. They're just straightforwardly talking about like their version of events. That's it. They are only talking about their version of events. That's it. They want to only have one set of facts that are readily available for all. And that's what they want. They want to be able to consistently have a faucet of propaganda. And TikTok has its fair share of this as well, by the way, like right-wing propaganda, reactionary propaganda. The problem is it also has some left-wing propaganda. It is the only platform in the United States of America that has some semblance of parity within the ideological left and right spectrum. That's it. That's what they're afraid of, and that's what they're terrified of. That's what they do not like. The fact that, you know, leftist sentiment goes above 20% on TikTok as opposed to every other platform where it's basically completely dominated by right-wing narratives is what's so scary for a lot of people, because God forbid young people, because of the way that like TikTok operates, because of the way that the TikTok algorithm operates, they don't care. It just doesn't matter what the ideology is. There's no markers on like what kind of ideological predisposition you have. If it's just like something is popular, something is readily consumable, people watch it and people blow it up. And that's it. That's it. So that is terrifying.
Of images dominates, and we can't discount that. But I think it also,
Reddit is pretty left too, though. Reddit is literally the most specific type of. Reddit is the most NatSec liberal website out there. It's worse than many other platforms in that respect. Reddit is not left; it's liberal. Okay, it is very liberal, but it's also incredibly national security focused. Like, no matter what you try to do on IG or YouTube, you'll eventually find yourself back in a right-wing algo. Exactly. So much of the American-owned platforms, so much of the Western-owned platforms are just like far-right slanted. Reddit as well, for the record. Not far-right slanted, but Reddit is like basically a think tank in and of itself. And I mean that as a pejorative. Like, when it comes to foreign policy, Reddit is like neocon central. When it comes to social democracy, domestic policy, Reddit's pretty progressive, right? They love Bernie, but they also are like, everyone in China, everyone in China is out to get America. I mean, people talk about Reddit as though it's like a very progressive space. Literally bring up the issue of Israel in 90% of subreddits. See how it goes down for you, okay? Reddit is incredibly pro-NATO, incredibly pro-American empire, incredibly Western chauvinist, incredibly anti-China, incredibly pro-Israel across the board. Part of that is also because Reddit and the way that Reddit operates as a platform lends itself to botting pretty easily, lends itself to brigading pretty easily. So like 100 people that are designated to a task can like truly undermine an entire very popular subreddit. Like they can just change the dynamic in its entirety. It's so simple to do that. It's so simple to bot Reddit. It's so simple to brigade Reddit. It is very, very easy to control. It's very easy to control the narratives on Reddit, and people do it all the time. It happens all the time. What? Why are there 3 million accounts? Wait, what did you say? Are we gonna lose our free speech basically with Trump being the president? I mean, this is happening under the Biden administration. So one might even suspect that we are losing our free speech under the Biden administration as well, and the Trump administration is only going to accelerate it. This is not a partisan thing. I don't even think it has anything to do with parties. Okay, you know what I think? I think it's because America's strength out the global stage is waning, and when the American strength goes away, when America is no longer the dominant hegemonic force, they get scared. And when our leaders get scared, they're going to start behaving in this way. They're going to start tampering with free speech. Free speech is something that you can only have if you are so dominant around the planet that you don't care. Okay? That's what I've tried to always describe to you guys. Like, I get to say the things that I say because I have no motion, because I do not threaten the powers that be. Do you understand? I do not threaten the corporate hierarchy. You can only have free speech, and which is never fully free, by the way. Remember, obviously, Edward Snowden, Chelsea Manning, Julian Assange, and many other examples of America going, okay, too much free speech for you. Okay? There's never been like a full-blown free speech. It's just that like free speech in the way that I understand it, free speech in the way that I see it, is a permission structure for what is allowed. Okay? If you are too disruptive with your free speech, if you are a whistleblower, a real one that actually identifies some of the horrible things that the American government is doing, for example, that actually harm American interests, then they will imprison you. Then they will punish you. Maybe sometimes you might even get the CIA award for journalism, as people like to say, when you end up, committing Sudoku with 2 bullets in the back of your dome. It's just, free speech existed before the U.S. was hegemonic. Oh my God. I do love the notion that America had free speech at a time, especially before America was hegemonic. Do you think that we were more open to free demonstration? Are you crazy? Do you know anything about the anti-communist initiatives that this government engaged in? There is a reason why there is no semblance of labor in this country, labor power in this country. Okay? Because this is the heart of the Red Scare. This is the heart of empire. This is the heart of the anti-communist sentiment. This is where the Cold War was fought and won. Yeah. That's why it's so funny. Like, the American history is riddled with straightforward assassinations of people that have demanded more. Things that we actually take for granted now. Literally, the weekend. Why do I celebrate the weekend every Friday and say that our forefathers fought long and hard so that we could have a sense of autonomy, a 5-day work week? How do you think that happened? There were demonstrations. People died in the process,
Has a very, very, very challenging effect on the narrative.
Yeah, a small parenthetical point, which is some wonder why there was such overwhelming support for us to shut down potentially TikTok or other entities of that nature. If you look at the postings on TikTok and the number of mentions of Palestinians relative to other social media sites, it's overwhelmingly so among TikTok broadcasts. So I'd note that's of real interest, and the president will get the chance to make action in that regard.
That's the thing I don't understand. Like, in terms of people just defending this like TikTok ban, okay? Defending this TikTok ban while simultaneously operating under this notion that like, well, the Chinese government does it too. Okay, you have an issue with the Chinese government. You're an American. You're not Chinese. And you're advocating for the American government to do so as well. Like, it makes no goddamn sense to me. Here, let's listen to this private correspondence within Jonathan Greenblatt and the ADL.
I Israel is not left and right. It is young and old. And the numbers of young people who think that Hamas's, massacre was justified is shockingly and terrifyingly high. And so we really have a TikTok problem, a Gen Z problem, that our community needs to put the same brains that gave us Taglit, the same brains that gave us all these other amazing innovations, need to put our energy toward this.
That's why he's still tweeting about you? Wait, he's still tweeting about me? It is pretty crazy that this man has spent a good deal of time tweeting about me as, one of the leaders of the most significant institutions in the United States of America combating anti-Semitism, supposedly, in air quotes, anti-Semitism. I saw one from like a day ago. Wait, really? It is pretty wild that oh, because Bernie was on my stream? What did he say? Yeah, Bernie was being anti-Semitic, huh? Me and Bernie, just two anti-Semites. A lot of people seem to view you as a dangerous anti-Semite. No, that is what's so disgusting about this, okay? No one, and I mean no one, sincerely believes that I am anti-Semitic, okay? That is so incredibly insane. No one actually believes that I am sincerely anti-Semitic. The amount of time and effort that I have spent actively combating anti-Semitism, the fact that anyone would actually entertain the notion that I am even remotely anti-Semitic is so psychotic. And that's what's so insane about this. Okay? What's so insane about it is that this is a pure fabrication. It is a very cynical weaponization. It's not that I am anti-Semitic. It's that I'm anti-Israel. That is what is terrifying. It's so frustrating, dude. The idea that Bernie Sanders would voluntarily sit for an interview with Hassan Piker, an individual who routinely has used his platform to spread anti-Jewish tropes, amplify propaganda from a designated terrorist group, and promote toxic anti-Zionism, says an awful lot about the senior senator from Vermont and the normalization of anti-Semitism. Like, if my girlfriend saw that tweet, she would just assume it's true. Okay, let me explain this one more time. I'm saying that Jonathan Greenblatt, who is familiar with my game, okay, does not sincerely believe that I am anti-Semitic. Maybe other people who don't know who I am hear Jonathan Greenblatt say this and think that. But the people that make a big fuss about this sort of thing they do not actually think I'm anti-Semitic. I know for a fact that Jonathan Greenblatt does not think I'm anti-Semitic. Okay? He is simply utilizing anti-Semitism allegations in an effort to combat his true fears. Someone who is not anti-Semitic, who is actually saying correct things about Israel. I am, in that respect, a much larger villain for Jonathan Greenblatt than someone who is deeply anti-Semitic but pro-Israel. Okay? Between me and the likes of Ann Coulter, who is deeply and unconditionally pro-Israel, while also simultaneously incredibly anti-Semitic, I am a far greater threat. You want to know why? Because his nieces and nephews tune in and listen to me talk about Israel and go, hey, I know this guy's not anti-Semitic, and I think he's making a lot of good points. That is infinitely more terrifying. Do you understand? That's it. That's the real problem here. As a matter of fact, I'll take it one step further. If I was outwardly anti-Semitic and also anti-Israel, I would not present as big as a threat to someone like Jonathan Greenblatt, because you can immediately point out someone like that for being insane. This is why the likes of Dan Bilzerian and even Candace Owens sometimes get a lot more motion in mainstream institutions and mainstream media, because you can so easily just go, well, look at that guy. They're talking about the importance of like how this is so directly related to Judaism or whatever, and the cabal and the Jewish cabal and the elite pedophiles or whatever the fuck. That's it. For someone like Jonathan Greenblatt, especially because they have a very short-term They have a very short-term benefit attitude when it comes down to things like this. Someone like myself, or God forbid, even scarier, an outspoken anti-Zionist Jew is significantly more terrifying. Okay? That's it. An anti-Zionist Jew or an anti-Zionist who's not Jewish, but certainly goes against anti-Semitism and routinely combats anti-Semitism is absolutely worse than someone who is overtly anti-Semitic and also anti-Israel. Okay? 100%. What? Please stop calling her that. You can acknowledge she's a terrible person without using racially charged nicknames. Clandis Owens? You're joking, right? You have to be joking. What is happening right now? Quite literally a white nationalist. She's a black woman who is a white supremacist. What is happening? Okay, you're officially woke of the day. Take a day off. Woke of the day for the chatter. Anyway, let's finish this video.
Again, like we've been chasing this left-right divide. It's the wrong game. Real game is the next generation. And the Hamas and their accomplices, the useful idiots in the West, are falling in line in ways that are terrifying. Last ago, we saw a dramatic change in the language of the activists here in America on October the 8th. The language of groups that we've long tracked, who've long been problematic, like Students for Justice in Palestine and Jewish Voices for Peace.
Like, the funniest aspect of this kind of conversation is that, like, they'll say things like, well, they're saying the same things that Hamas is saying. They're saying the same things that Iran is saying, not recognizing that actually, for many people, unironically legitimizes the perspective. If your goal is to undermine Hamas or if your goal is to undermine Iran, you cannot actually present their perspective as the valid one in terms of Israel. But instead of trying to separate, if I was to do propaganda, okay, for Israel, which that's what the Apartheid Defense League is there to do, historically, at least. You know, in the 90s, they quite literally got into trouble for spying on Jewish anti-apartheid activists and collaborating with the apartheid South African government. Okay, just, you know, that's what the ADL was doing. Okay, the Apartheid Defense League. But if your goal is to solidify the obviously, you know, anti-Hamas perspective that is broad in the United States of America, or the anti-Iran perspective that is very popular in the United States of America, then you can't hand it to them. You know what I mean? You can't present them as the only people that are saying Israel is doing a genocide to us. Okay? Because the reality of the matter there is, for many people, when they see what's going on, they go, oh my God, this is unlimited bloodshed. This is unlimited brutality happening with our tax dollars. You have to present a reasonable position. This is why I've always maintained the position that, like, liberal Zionism, to a certain respect, is supposed to give Israel much more bandwidth to be cruel and maintain the apartheid. But people supercharge their attitudes, their anti-Palestinian sentiment, their anti-Arab sentiment, their Islamophobic sentiment in the aftermath of October 7, and forgot that, like, that is the way you're supposed to do propaganda to the West. Just completely cast that aside. That's why one of the most dangerous, weapons. That's why one of the most dangerous weapons against pro-Israeli sentiment and Hasbara is the translate from Hebrew button. Okay.
Like this, and went to like Iranian propaganda. The language I could show you from their toolkits, because our analysts are in their groups. We saw this again on October the 8th. It was that fast. Like, the language in their toolkits was all about the...
Like, this person has no way of comprehending that for many people, like myself, okay, they had at least some understanding. Well, not myself, but like many others, had at least some crumb of understanding of the dynamic there with the apartheid. And of course, immediately we're like, this is only happening because of 75 years of occupation, brutal occupation. What do you think is more likely? That people have an accurate assessment of Israeli history and settler colonial violence, or that Hamas and Iran deployed a multi-million-dollar propaganda operation completely without like the American State Department ever figuring it out. This complex multi-million-dollar propaganda operation to brainwash the American public. What do you think is what happened? And also, if that's the case, are Israeli historians like Ilan Pappé or Avi Shalim, are they also operating with Hamas propaganda in mind? People like Norm Finkelstein, they're all doing Hamas and Iranian propaganda. They're getting paid by Iran and Hamas. It's even funnier to say that they're being paid by Hamas. Like, Iran at least is a nation state in and of itself, but Hamas is a resistance group that was born out of endless occupation and works within the confines of a concentration camp. They have very limited motion outside. Noam Chomsky being paid by the Iranian state and Hamas. Gabor Mate, Holocaust survivor, being paid by the Iranian state and Hamas. Or maybe plenty of these scholars, plenty of these academics that have spent their entire lives documenting the atrocities have come to this conclusion because they have a moral compass that allows them to see right from wrong and aren't simply invested in the maintenance of an settler colonial apartheid state.
And lots of other language that we recognized from Iranian propaganda.
I'm confused by this. Why are they shadowboxing? Ignoring reality won't help them achieve their goals. No, ignoring reality and suppressing any kind of information that counters the Hasbara narratives has been incredibly effective for 76 years, or at least for 74, 75 years. It's this last year, since 2021, I would say, where things have started changing. Major U.S. Jewish groups back bipartisan bill like see TikTok ban. Jewish federations in North America says it supports the proposed law due to concerns of anti-Semitism proliferating on the platform. Not on Twitter, by the way. Anti-Semitism proliferating on TikTok. Now, I'm not going to tell you that anti-Semitism hasn't been proliferating on TikTok. It certainly has. Sometimes I'll see a new dog whistle that I didn't even know existed was 127. And I had to dive a little bit deeper into figuring out what this meant. But I saw this dude doing not 127, my number, my autism score, 127,000. Okay. Not my autism score, dummies. I think it's 127,000 or something like that. That's a new dog whistle. I don't even know if the ADL database has it, but I didn't know what it was at first. I was like, why are people saying 127,000, or maybe it's a different number, something along those lines. But it turns out they're saying that, or 217, is it 217 or 271? It's not 100 it's not 127, it's 271. Okay. Yeah, it's 271. It's 271. Sorry. That dog whistle is the Holocaust revisionist, Holocaust denial dog whistle that claims that only 271,000 Jews were killed. It's a dog whistle to deny the 6 million number. Yeah, that's the new dog whistle. And I found out about this dog whistle from TikTok, as a matter of fact. I saw the dog whistle on TikTok, and I was like, what the hell is this number? So, don't act like you don't know. No, what? I have no idea what you're saying. Yeah, it's also kind of it's still insane that they're just saying only 270,000 Jews were killed, not 6 million. Oh, okay. I mean, it's already incorrect, but even then, it's a psychotic thing to say that is supposedly acceptable. What is the argument here? But anyway, listen. The point is, TikTok, of course, also has anti-Semitic sentiment. But which platform do you think has more open, overt anti-Semitic sentiment than TikTok? It's Twitter. I've never heard Jonathan, I've never heard the Apartheid Defense League go after Twitter, okay? As a matter of fact, after Elon Musk openly seconded one of the most common Nazi ideals, the notion that Jews are doing unlimited third world immigration into the Western world to destroy Western superiority, okay? When he said, you have said the truth to that argument on his own platform that he owns, on his own platform that he's unbanned every single Nazi on, Jonathan went up to him and was like, yo, you got to be pro-Israel, dog. What's this about? And Elon Musk was like, no, I love Israel. And Jonathan Greenblatt was like, yeah, Elon is you know, he's a good guy, and defended him. It was so ridiculous. This moment and this argument, this glaringly obvious instance of the Apartheid Defense League refusing to actually combat anti-Semitism, but instead working to, you know, defend the apartheid, okay, was so frustrating that the previous president of the ADL was like, what the fuck are you doing to Jonathan Greenblatt? The previous president of ADL, who's also not exactly a good guy either, you know? Even he was like, dog, what are you doing? When Donald Trump was like, if I lose, it's because of the Jews. I've given everything to you, Jews. Why won't you actually give back to me for once? I've given you Israel. I've given you everything. Jonathan Greenblatt, nothing. Just like a subtle nod, being like, Mr. President, Mr. Trump, sir, you have said something that maybe is being misunderstood. I apologize for even criticizing you, but dude, TikTok is not anti-Semitic. All the Gaza stuff just got shared a lot. No. I'm not saying TikTok is like overwhelmingly anti-Semitic. I'm saying that every platform has a decent amount of anti-Semitism in it, TikTok included, of course. But if there's one platform that you could designate as the most anti-Semitic platform, it's Twitter. Like open neo-Nazi shit goes viral on this platform virtually every single day, where there's another gif of like Adolf Hitler and people are like, we have to apologize to him. Anyway, I think the cold feet around the TikTok ban reflects that there never really was any specific security fear around it, but beyond, it's a weird Chinese app, Chinese-owned app that's popular. And that's true. I think that is the case as well.
Its citizens and its data, and this law does stand.
Devin, the Biden administration says they're leaving this to the Trump administration to implement, but the ban is supposed to go into effect in 2 days before Trump is sworn in. Trump has said he's going to save TikTok. So how is this all going to play out now? What are you watching for?
That's the million-dollar, maybe multi-billion-dollar question, Diane. As you know, TikTok is one of the most popular apps in the world. It's certainly here in the United States. So many users, half the country, if you believe the statistics, have used this app on a monthly basis. So that's a remarkable number of people turning to the app. Now, TikTok's attorney said during the oral argument just last week that the app will go dark on the 19th if, in fact, this ban does take effect. So we'll see what that actually means. There's been a lot of debate, a lot of speculation about how it will work. But keep in mind, to Brian's point, that this law actually was aimed at ByteDance. That's the company that it addresses. That's the company it regulates. And the Supreme Court today said that foreign companies, ByteDance is owned by the Chinese, don't have First Amendment rights. They don't have rights in the United States. And so, you know, really the law is forcing ByteDance to sell, and now they have 2 days to do that. We should say, you know, a deal of that magnitude very likely couldn't be executed in 2 days. But the law does include an exemption for the next president of the United States, well, either President Biden or President Trump, if in fact a deal is at hand. If ByteDance does decide in the next few hours to sell, there's a buyer that's come forward. If sufficient legal arrangements are in place, then the government can move forward and take that at its word and extend this ban, delay the ban for 90 days. So that's another possible development we could keep an eye out for here in the next little bit.
Brian, in the meantime, you've seen a ton of TikTok users start migrating to other similar apps. Also, I think most, if not all of them, also owned by Chinese companies, if not ByteDance themselves. So what does this decision mean in terms of precedents for other social media apps and other kind of TikTok copycats?
One is very difficult because I didn't even know how to use TikTok. I was trying to figure it out. Now we have to move to a whole other platform. But in terms of the narrowness of this decision, think of it this way. The Supreme Court is saying is if it has two wings and it has feathers and it has a bill, then it's a duck and it cannot apply in this way based on the law. So if other organizations come out and say, you know what, we have two wings, but we don't have feathers and we do have a bill, then the narrowness of this decision may not apply to other entities. And so what you're seeing is that the precedent's going to be narrowly tailored to the way in which ByteDance operated TikTok and the way in which TikTok collected information. If another company, foreign or domestic, decides to just go a little bit different than how the Supreme Court decided, that company may still exist. And I think the precedent is going to be other companies looking at this decision and saying, how can we exist with these rules in place?
So is this going to be congressional whack-a-mole if they try to ban them all? Is it just going to be some new company comes up and Congress has to pass a new law if they want to ban that one too?
Pretty much. It becomes a situation of if a different company comes at this in a way that ByteDance didn't, and they're operating in a way that the court did not imagine or did not contemplate, or that this law that is basically telling ByteDance that they need to divest in a different way, then yes, Congress might have to come up with a new law to adjust that. It's the way technology works. As technology.
Everyone knows you're anti-Semitic, dog. I was talking to a girl on Hinge and she asked what I watch on YouTube. I decided to take a chance and mention you with a couple mainstream names and she promptly unmatched with me. Okay. Cope.
Technology grows, we find new ways to regulate and enforce and ensure that they're safe for all people participating.
Devin, so what's the immediate impact here? What are you watching for in literally the next 2 days?
Well, Diane, if in fact this goes forward in 2 days and takes effect, we are led to believe that American-owned companies that facilitate TikTok, so sites like Apple and Google and their app stores, won't be able to offer the app legally for download there or any future updates, at least so long as the ban is in place. So that'd be the first thing. The second question is what happens to all those people, those 100 million people who have TikTok on their phones? That's more of a murky question. The company says the app will go dark, but it's not entirely clear what that means. They haven't confirmed whether they'll flip a switch and turn it off. It is not illegal as of Sunday to have TikTok on your phone. It will not be a crime to use TikTok if it still works. So that will still be, plain.
I like that they had a good old-fashioned, before people get mad at me, I'm going to use a term that's problematic, Mexican standoff here. Okay, I actually don't even know if that's problematic or not. I'm just, being woke of the day ahead of time. But and the Chinese government, or rather the owners of TikTok, ByteDance, was just like, yeah, no, we're not going to divest, dude. Like, that's crazy. Okay, we're not going to divest. You're delusional. As a matter of fact, I'll take it one step further. We will close down our servers. So 170 million Americans that currently enjoy their treats will no longer be able to have access to their treats. And basically the American government was like, we didn't realize that we didn't have motion like that. Excuse me, you can't do that, actually. So now they have to, pass the buck to the Trump admin. I think it's so funny because if what they're saying is true and China wants to influence Americans with this app, if they don't sell it and it just goes dark, Americans who have used the app are going to be mad at the American state. That would mean China would win either way. Soft power goats. This is so dumb. Yeah. It's just, there is no way to look at this. Like, there is no valid reason for this other than we don't like that a app that is not owned immediately, like not owned directly by an American, but indirectly owned by many Americans, has this level of motion in our market and also simultaneously has the capacity to change people's minds about certain issues that we want to control the flow of information on. We can't put our thumb on the scales. And I don't like that. What's also crazy, indirectly owned by many Americans, Fire. I mean, it is owned by many Americans. Why do they not have the same attitude towards Twitter? And I'm not talking about Elon Musk, who is obviously South African. I'm talking about the Saudi government. The Saudi government is a major owner of Twitter now. That's who actually bought Twitter. Elon Musk didn't front the entire thing. He went to Saudi Arabia and got their sovereign funds to put up billions of dollars necessary to purchase it. Why do we not have that same issue? Yeah, 60% of its parent company, ByteDance Limited, is owned by global investors. 20% is owned by its co-founders and 20% by its employees, including thousands of Americans. Saudi's second largest investors in Twitter after Musk's takeover. Yep. Kingdom Holding Company and the private office of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal will maintain their stake in Twitter after Musk took control over the social media company. Saudi Arabia Kingdom's holding company, KHC, along with the private office of Prince Al-Walid bin Talal, will continue their ownership of Twitter shares valued at $1.89 billion after Elon Musk's takeover of the social media company, making them jointly the second largest investors, according to a statement released by the Saudi prince. Bin Talal, who shared the statement on his Twitter account on Friday and made reference to Musk as the chief twit, stated that the deal was in line with the long-term strategy of KHC. Because China is not an ally, maybe, dog? Brother, I know, that's what I'm saying. That's the point. It is also owned by a Chinese company, Tencent. Why is it not banned too? Because Reddit ultimately is still controlled by Americans. Okay? That's why. So much Then what don't you understand? Wait, what? Do you think that every single time I ask rhetorical questions, I'm simply asking a real straightforward question because I don't know what the answer to that question is? Or do you think I'm using the rhetorical questions as a tool to further solidify the argument that I'm making? We do too much trade with China. They own, like, Chinese investors own, or I guess if you want to say every Chinese company is technically controlled by the government. Chinese investors and the Chinese government has control over, to a certain degree, every single company. Like so many companies. No, I understand, but that's how it's always works. Saudis are puppies. Dog, that's what I'm saying. The reason why I brought this up is because it's not about like foreign countries owning or what their internal politics look like. It has everything to do. It has everything to do with this one specific foreign country. And us not having any control over the flow of information, not being able to put our thumb on the scale. That's my point.
Out a little bit, but to Brian's point, you know, this ban is only in effect in so long as a foreign adversary owns the back end of TikTok, and it can lift at any time. So as long as there's a deal that's worked out at some point, or the arrangement that TikTok has satisfies the government's concerns, then perhaps it can come back in full force, even very quickly. So, you know, a lot can happen in this space, and we've seen the negotiations take off. Donald Trump, of course, has invited the TikTok CEO to be.
When I say fuck me in frustration at work, what I actually mean is have sex with me, 62-year-old coworker. Yes, GILF lives matter.
Front and center at his inauguration on Monday. There's some speculation as to maybe he'll be able to work out some kind of a deal there. But remember, Diane, just 4 years ago, he was the one who signed an executive order banning TikTok. He was the one that wanted it out of the country. He signed a law banning TikTok from all government devices, which remains in force today. If you're a government employee, you can't download TikTok. So, you know, it's Donald Trump's method to use things like this for negotiation tactics. We'll see if he's able to pull something out of his hat. But in the meantime, come Sunday, according to the company, it will go dark.
And I do have some breaking news on that front, Devin. President-elect Trump has just posted on Truth Social that he spoke to President Xi Jinping of China, that the call was a very good one.
My goat, JD Pondon, JD Pondon, JD Pondon, baby, JD Pondon, baby.
One for both China and the USA, he says, and he says it's his expectation that they will solve many problems together and starting immediately.
You already know he's gutting the Treatlerites. You already know. You already know he's killing all of the Adolf Treatler supporters by eviscerating American trade with all of his tariffs. Okay? He wants the suburbs to scream. He wants every single drop shipper to drop dead. Okay? A true third worldist, a true Maoist third worldist, dude. You thought Xiaohongshu was the application. Turns out Xiaohongshu is actually not the red note, but the red book, the little red book that Trump has a copy of. He wasn't reading Mein Kampf. He was reading the little red book. The revolutionary sentiment lives within JD Pondon. He will take out every Treatlerite one by one.
He says we discussed balancing trade, fentanyl, TikTok, and many other subjects. President Xi and I will do everything possible to make the world more peaceful and safe. So it sounds like President-elect Trump has wasted no time trying to address this directly with the Chinese president. Of course, waiting to see what that all means. But what's your impression, Devin, or your reaction, I should say, to how much Trump has spoken about this, especially given, as you point out, he had a very different.
By the way, you misunderstand the Facebook is banned in China argument. That's about reciprocity of trade, market access. Doesn't matter, though, because the government didn't argue that. You're right as to why TikTok got banned, but legally it's no different than the restrictions on foreign ownership of media outlets. Wait, what? No, I'm saying that... What? Am I misunderstanding you? Maybe. I'm saying that I don't care. Like, sure, Facebook should exist in China. I don't give a shit. But also, I'm not Chinese. I have no control over what the Chinese government can say or do. I don't even have control over what the American government says or does. I'm in here in the process of criticizing the American government for the actions that it's taking. Oh, you're saying the government didn't argue trade reciprocity and market access as a reason to ban TikTok. Is that what you're saying? I don't even think it's necessarily the anti-Israel speech that was popping off on TikTok that is the major reason. I think the anti-Israel speech is the straw that broke the camel's back, because it's an indication of a much larger problem. Okay, you could point to pro-Luigi sentiment if you want as well. These are the types of things that our corporate overlords are genuinely fearful of. Okay, it's ultimately disruptive to the pre-existing hierarchy when you have loads of younger generations going, yeah, no, I don't actually have a problem with Luigi Mangione, who, you know, allegedly assassinated the CEO of a healthcare company. That is what is terrifying to people who are ultimately holding on to power. Israel just has a lot of Israel, and the pro-Israel lobby has a lot of influence in American Congress. So they were able to exert that influence and basically push this across the finish line. Republicans had their menu of cuts leaked to the press. These are all the things that they're considering to pay for Trump's second round of tax cuts. Low lights include 10% tariff, lowering corporate tax rate to 15%, ending home mortgage interest deductions, taxing scholarships, pick your poison. Holy moly. Also, the elephant in the room is that TikTok survived years of escalation with China, but a few weeks of moral panic about Palestinian activism pushed the ban through. Israel's in trouble. Really is the activation word that shut off boomers' rational political thought. Congress got so freaked out by the idea of Adolf bin Laden on the Columbia campus that they forgot why they hadn't ever banned an entire social media ecosystem from America before. I think it is yet another indication that America's soft power capabilities are diminishing. And also, American capitalism is kind of, with the private-public partnership and constant cost-cutting, constant corner-cutting, constant profit-seeking, has actually eviscerated the institutional powers of, like, the State Department, the institutional power that the state intelligence apparatus also had. So they just don't have the same motion that they used to in terms of manufacture and consent. They don't have the same motion that they used to, so they're just trying to do this, like, ridiculous thing by taking matters into their own hands and like openly and boldly trying to stop this company at all costs from, like, poisoning the mind of the youth. And it was done in such a silly way, especially because the very nature of TikTok makes everything so publicly visible. It's like as a platform, as a social media platform, is the most successful. 170 million Americans are on it, right? It's infinitely more successful than Twitter is in terms of, like, getting normies to pay attention to a particular thing. That in and of itself is making the story much worse for them. If it was something that was, like, in the margins, like, they would have an easier time, in my opinion, banning DJI. They would have an easier time, in my opinion, banning TP-Link. Right? Chinese companies that they can claim are spying on Americans through these consumer products, right? They could do that. But with TikTok, it's like 170 million Americans use it. And also the very nature of the platform in and of itself is just like, it's a communication tool for a lot of normies. What is this? Hello, Americans here. Does anyone watch him? If you know who this is, what are your thoughts on him? I watch him. He looks good, but too woke, too gay. Love Kaya best. I'm too gay for the Chinese. I gotta mask it up. There's no way that's actually a Chinese person, dude. Are you kidding me? Have you guys seen what has motion in Asian countries? If I looked gayer, I would be considered hotter, I think. If I looked more androgynous, I would be considered sexier. That definitely was from China. The IP was from Anhui, a Chinese province. Oh, really? That's crazy.
Point in his last administration.
Right, and it's important to keep that context front and center as the new president comes in. And as we talk about the concerns about TikTok, these have been
Have you ever talked to Chinese who actually live there? I've seen lots of tweets without any research, just making me laugh at. Yes, I have talked to Chinese people who live in China. I also unironically have Chinese relatives who work in China.
front and center for the United States government, Congress, Republicans, Democrats, from the CIA over to the Pentagon, President Biden, President Trump. There's really unanimity that this is a concerning situation, and they have been in negotiations with ByteDance for more than 4 years. So it's not as if this law simply came out of the blue and now all of a sudden the government is going to ban TikTok. They have tried to come up with some sort of a solution for data security, putting Americans in charge of TikTok security on the board, putting some of their data in an American-owned cloud run by Oracle. But at the end of the day, the government has said,
like, for me, I think the reason why I'm still maintaining the position that it's not likely that TikTok is banned, and I might be totally off base on this, is because of a couple things, right? Like, one, too many Americans make money off of TikTok, both on the consumer side, like both on the small business owned and operation side. 7 million small businesses have started on TikTok, and too many institutional investors make money off of TikTok because they're, you know, the corporate investors into ByteDance directly. Okay. There's also an unimaginable amount of money that goes into TikTok in terms of marketing, for example, like major media companies like UMG and all these other like record labels have invested a lot of money and effort into TikTok as well. But on top of that, the American market, the American social contract revolves around treats. Okay? The American social contract is about easily accessible, readily available treats at my disposal at any given moment. And TikTok is a treat. Okay? If you take away this treat, people are going to get very mad. If you take away any treats from the American market, they will get mad, especially once they've grown used to it. Okay? And TikTok is a major treat for 170 million Americans. Think about how Americans responded when they couldn't get a haircut during the 1 month long period of COVID shutdowns. Okay? Think about how Americans responded when they had to be, they were forced to wear a mask in public for like a week and a half. They lost their minds because everything falls apart if you don't have access to treats. Think about how Americans reacted to inflation. When treats are no longer as readily accessible and as affordable, or are taken away from you, Americans go, what are we doing all this for? I don't have health care, right? My health care is a for-profit and tied to my job that I hate. Okay? I sit around in traffic to get there all day, every day. There's no, the roads are filled with potholes. The ISPs are screwing us over. We're not getting good enough service. No bandwidth whatsoever. No technological improvements that are immediately making my life better or easier. I never see any sort of tangible benefit from the technological improvements. Anytime we see any sort of tech improvements, it's actually to improve productivity, which then ends up displacing more parts of the labor force. The world is seemingly on fire or underwater, sometimes at the same time. I don't have anything. The only thing I have is the dollar menu and ease of access to treats. A relatively inexpensive television that I can buy year over year. When you take that away from Americans, they go, well, what am I doing this for? You took the last thing I had. You can't buy a house. You can't retire. The world is on fire. There's constant war all the time. Everything sucks. Dollar menu gone, bro. I know. That's my point. Dollar menu is gone. That's the point. That's what I'm saying. How do you think Americans responded when they had to pay extra dollars for their eggs? Or when the dollar menu went away? This is like my first time in 5 years watching you that I disagree. They're literally shutting operations on Sunday. What you mean it won't be banned? So TikTok is shutting down operations on Sunday. How do you think it's going to be saved? I think it's a flex. I don't think they're going to shut down operations, especially considering that Joe Brandon quite literally said they're doing a 90-day extension on the ban already, so that, it's up to Trump to fix it. I used to work for TikTok. We'll see. Do you feel me, though? Do you understand where I'm coming from with this, chatters? What is messy is that we hold ByteDance shares. I don't know how that severs cleanly with a U.S. acquisition. Currently working for TikTok, they plan more U.S. hires. Yeah, that's the other thing. Like, TikTok themselves said that they're going dark, but they've also simultaneously not engaged in any sort of layoffs whatsoever, as far as I understand, in their American operations. That's odd. Biden is doing a 36-hour extension, as far as I know, not 90 days. No, it's a 90-day extension. It's so funny to think that these guys literally turned around yesterday Oh, he did? I thought it was 90 days. Am I wrong? Biden didn't sign a 90-day extension. He gave it 36 hours. That's so stupid. I love that this is a self-inflicted wound by the Democratic Party, by the way, that actively pushed for this. Wonderful stuff, Mr. President. Wonderful way to leave office. Just making sure that no one under the age of 35 ever votes for the Democrats ever again. It's so sweet. It's so sick. Where's that tweet with the Chuck Schumer? I'm sure you guys have that Chuck Schumer tweet. No? This is what I was looking for. Thank you. No, not this. There's a video of Chuck Schumer talking about this yesterday as well. Not this. No, the video of Chuck Schumer.
Very opposed to TikTok.
What? No, that's not it either. But I mean, this is funny. It was a Ken Klippenstein tweet. Oh, this is the one I was looking for. Here it is. Congress panics, realizing no one's going to buy TikTok before the ban, a problem they created, with Senator Schumer saying it's clear that more time is needed to find an American buyer and not disrupt the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans, so many influencers who have built up a good network of followers.
Few words about protecting TikTok's future while also protecting America's national security at the same time. It's clear that more time is needed to find an American buyer and not disrupt the lives and livelihoods of millions of Americans. It's
cool, man. What happened? You guys didn't think about that ahead of time? I'm a stupid guy. Even I could see that ahead of time. I warned this. I said this is obviously a major reason as to why it can't be banned. 7 million small businesses. 7 million small businesses, man. $11 billion of revenue generated on TikTok year over year. Are you crazy? Just because ByteDance owns it? Like, it's such a stupid move. It was such an unimaginably stupid freaking move. Now, ironically enough, it was so stupid that it was initially a Trump move. That's what's also fantastic about this. It's amazing that the TikTok ban was 100% a Trump GOP thing originally, that Dems found some way to completely politically own and then set up Trump to be the heroic savior of a popular platform. Absolute masterclass. Every day that goes on, I am firmly committed to the belief that the Democratic Party, if not intentionally, is operating, maybe unintentionally or intentionally, as the controlled opposition party. It's hilarious. It's hilarious that their job effectively is to just make the Republican Party look good. U.S. government, especially the Dems, act against the people and against their own best interest to fulfill the interests of the Israel lobby. I don't think TikTok ban is such an unimaginable outcome despite everything. There are certain things that are more powerful. There are certain interests that are more powerful in in the American collective consciousness than doing the bidding of a couple people with motion and lobbying power. Okay, I think there's a limit to how much the pro-Israel lobby can get away with, like, pushing Congress. You can quietly engage state by state and, make it illegal to protest Israel. You can do that across the board over multiple decades, right? And they have done that. That has happened in 32 states. It is illegal to engage with BDS technically on paper. Okay? But you can't do something like this when you are taking away 170 million Americans' treats from their hands in this most visible, most public way possible. And you can't do it in a way where it literally ruins a ginormous percentage of American small businesses. I think that even if they were to push for this, at the end of the day, there will be severe political repercussions for it. That's how I foresee it.
So many influencers who have built up a good network of followers. That's why last night, Senate Democrats tried to pass a bill that will extend the deadline to give everyone more time to come up with a workable solution. But Senate Republicans blocked our bill, which is stunning because time is running short. We will continue to work to find a responsible solution to keeping TikTok going. Balance. We must end goods and protect against keeping TikTok going, protect American livelihoods, and protect against Chinese Communist Party surveillance. We must and can do all three. I have made my views clear.
There is nothing funnier than, this is the perfect demonstration of Democratic Party incompetence, by the way. Like, they wrote the bill, they pushed the bill, they signed it into law, and now they're like, we're doing our very best to try and stop this bill that we pushed for and signed into law. Well, why did you write it? Why did you actively push for it? couldn't foresee this being a major political burden? Oops.
Clear to the current administration. And I will work with the Trump administration and with both parties to keep TikTok alive while protecting our national security.
It's crazy, man. It's so dumb. And here he is back. Like, we must, yesterday, Chuck Schumer hits this line. We must protect TikTok's future. We're also protecting American national security. We're not against TikTok. We're against a Chinese company in cahoots with the CCP owning TikTok. Senate Dems tried to pass a bill to extend the deadline. Republicans blocked it. Yeah, dude. You're doing a great job pushing this on the Republicans when the most public-facing, most popular Republican out there is actively saying he's going to save TikTok. I'm sure the American population will think it's not your fault.
I have been very opposed to TikTok. I was one of the first to expose the Chinese links. And I have urged that TikTok be closed down in America. I have been very...
Well, Biden can veto it? What do you mean? He signed it into law already. What do you mean veto it? He literally signed it. The TikTok ban was already signed into law and then also went all the way up to the Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court also then said, yes, the TikTok ban is in motion. It already happened. Here, Senator Chuck Schumer of New phone call to the ban would damage his legacy if it occurred on his watch, according to two people familiar with the conversation. Mr. Schumer, who said he wanted TikTok to be sold to an American owner instead of being banned, publicly confirmed on Thursday that he had pushed Mr. Biden to extend the deadline. God, we are so stupid. I can't believe how incompetent the Democratic Party is, how stupid the Democratic Party is.
None of that is actually good enough. So whether or not Donald Trump can now come in and talk to President Xi and pull something out of a hat remains to be seen. It's possible, but it's not like he's starting from scratch in this space, Diane. And just to underscore the threat, I've heard from a number of former officials with the CIA and the NSA really emphasizing that this is dangerous. We're not just talking about, you know, a hacker.
By the way, not enforcing it doesn't matter. The bill, in the way that it was written, extends a 5-year period, which actually goes over the Trump administration. So even if the Trump administration, okay, the bill, in the way that it's written, doesn't punish American citizens for using TikTok. It punishes companies like Apple and Google for having TikTok on their platforms, for allowing TikTok to operate on their platforms. It punishes them to the tune of $5,000 per individual user. So that's 5,000 times 170 million. Okay? And it can be used at any point. It can be implemented at any given point. It has a 5-year period of implementation. So at any moment, even if Trump were to say right now that he wants to protect it and give assurances that he's not going to punish, he's not going to get the Department of Justice to go after Apple or Google for maintaining TikTok on their platforms, okay, he could, one, go against that at any given moment. He could just say, you know what, I've decided I am going to punish you for keeping TikTok. That's number one, okay? $850 billion fine. So that's number one. Number two, even if Trump were to, throughout his 4 years, defend TikTok and say that he's not going to punish, like give assurances and actually end up not punishing these companies for maintaining TikTok, okay, the next administration still has an entire year to literally punish these companies if they want to. You understand? So the way that this bill is written is to, you know, make it virtually impossible. Now, having said that, there's also an additional factor here at play. Google owns YouTube. Google owns YouTube. YouTube is a competitor to TikTok. So the Android store not carrying TikTok is actually massively beneficial for Google anyway. But the only thing holding this together, as I've said, the two factors holding this together, the fact that 170 million Americans use TikTok and they like TikTok. It's an unpopular move to ban TikTok. And also 7 million small businesses operate on TikTok. There's too many dollars going back and forth on TikTok. There's too much commerce happening on it. So those are the two reasons why I foresee TikTok not going away anytime soon.
or getting your personal information online. We're talking about perhaps the biggest threat to the security of the United States, amassing large swaths of data on all Americans in every state, where they eat, what their faces look like, where they live, what their hobbies are. And the fear is, according to these officials, that someday down the line, if we were to get into a war with China or some kind of conflict, they would be able to weaponize that aggregate data in some way, maybe to pinpoint attacks, maybe to shut down key pieces of electronic infrastructure. And so that's the real danger. It's not so much about hacking your individual video of you doing a silly dance, but it's really about what they can extract from all of that.
Hello, I am back. Not entirely sure what happened there, but I am back nonetheless. I believe I am back. Can you guys see me or hear me? Lost my internet connection because of my undying loyalty. Not an OBS crash, no. Lost my internet connection for a moment there, possibly due to all of the unlimited amounts of support that I was offering the People's Republic of China, and subsequently, what is happening? Okay, so this is giving it juice, but it's not giving it juice to that. All right. I was doing my regular pro-China hour, and all of a sudden, wait, what is it? There it is. All of a sudden, we run into some issues, All of a sudden. I have to fix it real quick, but in the process, we're saved. Why are we saved? Because I also have an IRL backpack. Now let me fix the internet while I do this as well. Let me analyze what the problem is here. But we have some fail-safes at this point. Can you use your phone as a hotspot to continue using your PC? I can use my phone as a hotspot, but it's not enough bandwidth. But also, what I could do technically is use my backpack as a hotspot as well. But instead of doing that, I'm just using it as a fail-safe in between while I fix my network issues, my network problems really quickly. Don't know why, but I'll just restart my adapter and try to see if it works. And if that actually doesn't work, then I will potentially use the backpack as this new backpack that I have, I can actually use as a modem in and of itself. Is this the same cam you'll be using in Japan? Yes. This is the same camera and the same setup that I will be using in Japan. But yeah, we're gonna get back to this. I'm gonna get back to my commentary in a brief moment. Let's see if I can fix it and fix it fast. And if I can't, complete network shutout. That's interesting. Interesting and also frustrating. Okay. Let me grab a drink real quick. Hold on. Ooh, I just sprayed the camera. I wonder if I can quickly flip the modem as a router. I'm gonna get some technical support real quick. Is it possible to flip the bag into a modem without major problems? How long would that take in your estimation? I wonder if it's because of network outages due to the wildfires or something like that. Nuisance that it happens at all, but I'm also going to be monitoring my router here, trying to see if I can gain access to it. Wait, never mind. Internet is back. Look at that. Boom. We're back, baby. All right, I'm flipping it back to I am, for the time being, flipping it back to the actual PC. I will see you on the other side, chatters. In the process of trying to fix the problem went away to begin with. All right, let's stop streaming. Let's start streaming again and see if it works. Hello, we're back. No, it's not muted. It's just that my microphone is that good. So once you get used to a certain level of sound that you hear, mic quality is dope on the IRL stream setup, by the way. How different? I wonder, do you guys have how different does my voice sound on this microphone as opposed to my other microphone? I wonder. More muffled sounding on here. Go back to the backpack, please. No, I will not be going back to the backpack. Okay. Backpack needs noise cancellation. Let's see. Let's compare it. Let's start streaming again and see if it works. Wait, why was there Wait, there's a delay. Hello, we're back. No, it's not muted. Oh, maybe the delay was because I was literally maybe the delay was because I was like swapping it. The delay only showed up at the end. Crisper on the backpack one, but like a little too crisp. A lot of mouth noises. Well, on the backpack one, there's probably a lot higher gain. It's a worse microphone overall, but it's interesting. Anyway, where were we? What were we talking about? All right, let's get back to Pamela Brown sharing what Trump said after the TikTok's court ruling. JD Pondon, the GOAT.
Because the concern is that ByteDance has obligations and allegiances to the Chinese government. And the specific national security concern is that this app is collecting enormous amounts of data on Americans and that data could be used or manipulated in a crisis. Now, in its decision, the court said that even TikTok, quote, did not dispute that the government has an important and well-grounded interest in preventing China from collecting the personal data of tens of millions of U.S. TikTok users. Nor could they. The platform collects extensive personal information from and about its users. Now, Justice Gorsuch wrote, quote, speaking with and in favor of a foreign adversary is one thing, allowing a foreign adversary to spy on Americans is another. Now, TikTok had argued that this ban is a violation of the First Amendment. As we know, nearly 200 million Americans use this app to express themselves, everything from the news to cat videos to the latest dance craze. But the justices appeared skeptical of that argument. And in their decision today, they said, look, this is very specific. We're talking about an app that collects an enormous...
It's an interesting predicament because liberals are like, liberals love resisting Trump. I wonder if they will turn around and quote unquote resist Trump on this and be like, he loves China. He's a Chinese communist agent, becoming even more reactionary for no reason, especially because being reactionary is the name of the game for the Republican Party. So you can never outflank them on racism or xenophobia. So I wonder if like liberals will try to do this silly thing.
Amount of data.
They've already given a major W to Donald Trump by leaving him as the singular savior of TikTok, a beloved, very popular application by hundreds of millions of Americans. So that in and of itself is already kind of stupid. Craziness overall across the board. You know, truly despicable
for a foreign
stuff.
adversary. So they said that even though First Amendment protections are usually given enormous deference, here they're issuing this narrow ruling. So legally, what could happen next? Well, it kind of falls to President-elect Trump if he is able to show that there are serious good faith negotiations underway to sell TikTok. This ban could be paused, but the Supreme Court today also could have paused this and given him more time to engage in those negotiations, and the court chose not to do that.
It is funny how someone in the chat said this as well. It's funny how the news media always says like, it's a silly dance application. Why do people like it so much? If it was just a silly dance application, people wouldn't be actively working to ban it. Okay? Like, they wouldn't be working to undermine this application that 200 million Americans use. They wouldn't be actively working to eliminate it. It was a silly dance application.
Yeah, that's certainly notable.
You sure they're pretty dumb? No, dude. It's not just because it's a silly dance application. Okay?
I'm going to bring Joan in because it's interesting. You know, Donald Trump was once spearheading the effort to ban TikTok, and then he's had this reversal. He wants to save it, right? The justices actually noted that he once tried to ban it.
They did, right at the top of the opinion. In a couple different instances, the justices referred to the fact that in August of 2020, Donald Trump had actually issued an executive order against TikTok. And it also noted that he had expressed concerns for the vast swaths of information that TikTok collects on American users. And that goes to the justices' grounds. Just to remind everyone what the federal government had argued here. Two grounds. They argued two grounds. One is all the data that's collected, the amassing of data from 170 million users. But then they also argued that TikTok not only had that data to use for blackmail or espionage, but also would be in a position to covertly manipulate.
Why are there multiple people sending me the Roseanne Barr Tom McDonald song? Is this another thing that's popping in the Discord server right now that you guys think is like really funny for me to react to right now? Or is it popping in a splinter Discord server so you guys are actively going, hey, this is great. Please watch this.
Manipulate messages. different kinds of propaganda. The justices actually set aside the second reasoning. They decided we're not going to look at that one because it was enough for them to find that the threat to national security was in the data collection. And you know, we kind of saw this coming because during oral arguments, several of the justices talked about information that could be collected now on young people who down the road, 10, 15 years from now, come into more important positions and then could be vulnerable to what had been collected on them. And just the risk of not just today, that data collection, but down the road, what Beijing could potentially do to it. And that was the crux of their reasoning.
Yeah, they're not doing anything right now. But what if they were to? We mustn't allow this to happen because they're not doing it right now. But, you know, they could. Good argument, man. Yeah. But somehow TikTok's much worse. It's just like everything that they criticize TikTok for, I've long maintained the position that like virtually every other American-born application does worse, okay? If you're talking about like radicalizing the youth, at least in the direction of like anti-Semitism, or in the direction of misinformation, like spreading misinformation, like every other platform is just as bad, if not the exact same as TikTok, or significantly worse. We can't ban weapons of war from assassinating our children in classrooms. We can't get health care. We can't ban the for-profit attitude that corporations have in terms of being mediators in our healthcare without offering any real service whatsoever, just simply making more money. That's it. Generating value for wealthy corporations, the corporate owners. We can't do anything about that. But God forbid, you know, down the line, China might use TikTok against us or something. I don't know. We should ban it just to be safe.
Today, Pam.
And so now you have Donald Trump, who told me on the phone this morning that, look, the decision is ultimately up to me. Congress has given me the decision to do it. Now, we know the law allows this 90-day extension if there are actual, real, tangible negotiations happening. But ByteDance has said it doesn't want to sell TikTok. And so there's this looming question of what's going to happen Sunday when this ban takes place. And between that time and when Donald Trump takes office, Monday officially, and what options are available to him?
Yeah, I'm curious what he's being advised as far as how much discretion he has. I don't think this law, as it was passed and as President Biden signed it, really gives the president-elect, future President Trump, a whole.
Hasanabi, would you support Russia owning and operating a popular social media company in the U.S. subsequent to the 2016 disinformation efforts? I'm not saying China and Russia are 100% the same. Just wondering about the extent of your perspective. Yeah, I don't really care. Like I said, first of all, Telegram already exists. And secondly, the problem here is that Russia didn't own or operate a social media platform. And with a couple $1 million, they literally worked within the Facebook system to do this disinformation campaign that you think was so damaging. So that's the point. Like, my point is there are better ways of creating a resilient defense against rising misinformation. Okay? I said this even back then. If the United States of America and American democracy can crumble in the hands of a foreign adversary that has a fraction of the GDP that we have, the fraction of a GDP of a state, basically, inside of the United States of America, with a couple $1 million on a social media platform, we have far larger problems in this country, okay? One must examine why propaganda of this sort could be even remotely effective. At that stage, the American education structure crumbling genuinely creates a national security problem then. But it doesn't seem like we're interested even remotely in solving that real issue. Does that make sense? What a superpower we are that we have regularly engaged in the same profit-seeking attitude in our domestic population to such a degree that we have basically made them dumber and dumber year over year, that they are susceptible to the whims of a foreign adversary that is tiny, that was able to successfully, and to this day still, able to make boomers, for example, who were fed a healthy diet of Red Scare propaganda and hatred of Russia, Russia was able to, through Telegram groups, undermine a century of Red Scare propaganda by using other American motivators like transphobia and homophobia and, you know, family values to basically reverse a century of anti-Russian Red Scare propaganda virtually overnight. How do you not see that as a major problem? Like, think about that. There's nothing funnier to me than watching Republican boomers go from everything around the world is because Russia, scary Soviet Russia, ruined our lives and made our children gay to virtually overnight turning around and going, Russia is the only nation that wants to defend the family values. So I like Vladimir Putin and what he's doing. That happened in such a short time span. Now, that was marginal. It's not all that consequential. I think if you were to ask boomers, they still pretty much hate Russia, right? They still pretty resoundingly despise Russia and are afraid of Russia. But it's crazy that you could even change any boomer's mind on this issue. You can't even change your boomers' minds on not being homophobic. The fact that there is a decent number of MAGA loyalists that also are pro-Russia is crazy. It's crazy.
Whole lot of flexibility in terms of being able to put the brakes on it once it goes into effect. There's a couple different options he has available. One, he could quickly see if he can put together a buyer group, and that is, again, if ByteDance and TikTok are willing to sell it, they have the option to just shut down their own service. They don't actually have to be bought, even if a buying group was put together. The other potential option that President-elect Trump might be thinking through with his team is whether or not he issues an executive order that directs the Attorney General not to enforce the law. In other words, not to conduct the investigations that the act calls for. But the law actually applies to the companies that provide access to the app. So it's the companies that provide the app stores that people download it from. And that puts those companies, if he were to say, look, this law is in place, but I'm just not going to enforce it, go ahead, companies, and still go ahead and provide access to it, that puts the companies in a really, really difficult place because they're in a position then of potentially not complying with the law and risking huge fines.
Especially for Sunday when he's not officially president.
Well,
right?
he can't do anything before Sunday. We only have one president at a time.
Exactly, and they've made clear, the Biden White House has made clear, look, it's the end of our term.
They're going to let it go. So the question would be, once President Trump steps into office, what does he do then? And it's not so simple. The law doesn't give him a whole lot of flexibility.
I want to go to Elena Treen. Elena, when I spoke to President-elect Trump this morning, he talked about his call with President Xi of China.
The entire system of pacification was built upon people believing the propaganda they're subjected to and the erosion of education, making them unable to understand their exploitation. Gramsci wrote about how the masses had drifted away from the traditional ideologies and towards a structure of feeling that awaited full articulation. Nerd.
And, you know, he said it was a great call, and they talked about TikTok, and they talked about several other issues. But that is notable because really the center of concern here that is also reflected in the Supreme Court opinion is about China, you know, taking Americans' data and spying on Americans. So you have to wonder what really went on in that conversation.
No, exactly. And I'd also keep in mind as well that there's many Republicans in Congress who voted for this bill. I mean, it was a bipartisan bill that Congress approved.
Yeah, Republicans famously don't immediately backtrack when Trump says backtrack now. Yeah, Republicans in Congress are definitely going to go against Teflon Don, JD Pondon. Okay.
Last year to ban TikTok by January 19th. And there's many Republicans who think that this ban needs to move forward despite what Donald Trump is saying. Look, I'd also remind you that Donald Trump himself, back in 2020, before he departed office for his first term, wanted a ban on TikTok. It's actually something that the Supreme Court cited.
It's so funny that virtually every mainstream media outlet is just like, guys, you don't understand. This thing that you all enjoy, that you clearly don't care about if it's like even spying on you, is actually spying on you, and that's dangerous? Why don't you understand that it's dangerous? Hello? Please, please, advocate for the ban of this thing, please. This thing that you like. Yes, you will never get health care. Yes, you will never have socialized medicine. You will, like, all medication will cost an incredible sum in perpetuity. You'll never be able to retire. You'll never be able to own a home. And the very last thing that you use to basically forget that harrowing reality. We're going to take away from you, but it's good. It's for your own good. The government will only operate in a meaningful way, in a way where it actually has a tangible impact on your life, if it's negative. Okay, if it takes away your last treat, the treat that you use to just kind of forget how shitty your reality is, please understand it's good. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. I promise it's a good thing. Nobody under the age of 40 is looking at that and going, yeah, I love that. Thank you. Thank you for taking my treat away. I really love that. Just kill me now, please.
In its decision today that he felt that there were national security concerns about a Chinese-owned company owning TikTok. Of course, now we are seeing really the stunning reversal from him. A lot of this is, and we've heard this from Donald Trump.
Like, I'm willing to bet that TikTok as a treat is so powerful that even if it was like somehow undermining people's privacy in a more meaningful way than other applications, because it doesn't currently, okay? People will still be like, no, don't ban it. I don't care. I like it. But the very fact that like every American understands that they are constantly being spied on, like constantly, that they have no semblance of privacy on any of the other app platforms, where at least TikTok is more fun than Instagram Reels. They want the more fun thing. You know what I mean? It's just like, if all the other platforms had like severe privacy restrictions and privacy protections, and TikTok was the only one where it was just like all hands on deck, you know, even then Americans would still be like, I don't really care. But the hilarity of the situation is that there's no privacy anyway.
Directly in his own words, he believes
Eastern Europe is proof that TikTok is dangerous. Yo, not to take away the spotlight from the precious US of A, but can you check out TikTok has been used in Eastern European elections? The ban is totally justified. There are talks to ban it in the EU as well. Regardless of Chinese intention, TikTok is a very useful tool and weapon of manipulation, not propaganda necessarily. All right, bro, then deal with it on your own, all right? Don't come in here with some shit about Romania. I'm sorry, all right? I know what you're talking about. But yeah, that seems like a Romanian issue, all right? Deal with it on your own then. But it's funny because, once again, the same argument pops off. Facebook can be utilized in the exact same way. Facebook is utilizing the exact same way. It's not about TikTok. Okay? YouTube could be utilized in the exact same way.
believes that he's
Twitter is currently owned by a rabid fascist right-wing billionaire, Elon Musk. What do you think he's doing? Forget Facebook. Elon Musk is actively using Twitter to undermine democratic elections everywhere. Just opening up an unlimited faucet of fascist propaganda. And you're over here being like, but TikTok is scary and dangerous. It's like, okay.
warm to TikTok because so many of users in this country, you know, there's tens of millions of Americans who...
Yeah, the owner of Twitter is endorsing the neo-Nazi party in every single European country. And you got Eastern European chatters in here being like, you know what's really dangerous? TikTok. Please.
Use TikTok on a daily basis. Some of them voted for him because they saw a lot of his campaign through the app and by using the app. Now, we also know a couple things. Not only did he talk to Xi Jinping this morning, but he has been in regular contact as well with TikTok CEO Shou Chew. He's talked to him on the phone. We also know he met with Donald Trump at Mar-a-Lago last month. And Chew is going to be at the inauguration on Monday. We also know that Xi Jinping is sending one of their top officials from the Chinese Communist Party to the inauguration as well, something they are doing for the first time. All to say, this relationship, Donald Trump's relationship with the CEO of TikTok, but also...
Didn't Harris also use TikTok for her campaign? Yes, like the Democratic Party used TikTok for their political campaigns. And there's apparently a cutout for some American content creators that will make like pro-American content on TikTok anyway, according to Ken Klippenstein's intercepted memorandums they found. Like, so it's obviously not that big of an issue. There's something there that they wanted to stop. Not entirely certain as to how they would be able to even do a cutout for like some American users in general, but like everyone uses TikTok. 170 million Americans use TikTok, man. That's a crazy number.
Xi Jinping is definitely one of those complicating matters in all of this. Even though Donald Trump has, really said that he wants to take a hardline policy on China, he also has Marco Rubio, if he is confirmed to be his Secretary of State, someone who was very much a hawk on China. He's actually sanctioned by Beijing. All of this is weighing into this decision. But I think the key thing is what Donald Trump is going to do once he is in office. And we do know that he is weighing an executive order to potentially push pause on this ban to see if they can find some sort of agreement with TikTok. I'm told in a short amount of time, maybe 60 to 90 days to put pause on this so they can try to find some sort of negotiation. So all of this is under consideration. But again, we will not know until Donald Trump officially makes that move once he is in office.
Here's the latest on the TikTok ban.
It's official. The app TikTok is set to be banned. To the U.S. government, I'm never forgiving you for this.
That's awesome.
TikTok and its US users campaigned hard to block the law banning it in America.
Yeah, and then they found out once again that the American government does not give a single solitary shit about their opinions. If there's anything that could maybe radicalize you in this moment, I hope that this is it. Like, they just don't care. If the abortion ban didn't do it for you somehow, I hope this does. Okay? Holy moly.
But they failed.
Baby dog, that's just my baby dog.
TikTok previously said it would go dark in America on Sunday, taking with it all those dance trends, memes, and marketing opportunities.
Baby work, yeah.
This is not a real cat, okay? But it looks like one.
Leaving creators like 23-year-old Queen Tay without the app responsible for 90% of her income.
Its algorithm is like no other. As somebody who has been posting on every major platform for years.
Abortion ban wasn't bipartisan Congress in 9-0 Supreme Court ruling. Wait, it wasn't a 9-0 Supreme Court ruling, but it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. The Supreme Court is yet another way in which the American government, the body of government, operates. It doesn't just have to be the legislative body, okay? The point is, when you think about like the American institutions across the board, when you think about the Supreme Court, when you think about the House of Representatives, okay? No, TikTok was unanimous. TikTok was unanimous, not the abortion ban, okay? But my point is, the Supreme Court and also the legislative body do not operate at the behest of the public. They never have and they never will. That's my point. Hello, virtually every branch of the government works against your best interests. This is all I'm stating. And for the TikTok ban, it was both the Supreme Court and the legislative body that pushed for it, virtually through unanimous consent. Supreme Court 9-0, TikTok ban came with like majority numbers as well. Do you think that was reflective of the broader popular sentiment from the American public? Of course not. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It never has mattered. So even if the abortion ban came through from the Supreme Court, it doesn't change that dynamic at all, because I'm thinking about it from the perspective of the average American citizen. Who the fuck looks at that and goes, well, technically this was just the Supreme Court. Like, it doesn't matter. It still harms Americans in the same exact way. It may be reflective of how Supreme Court feels about the value. Okay, but like, Congress was overwhelmingly in support of banning it. That's how it even got to the Supreme Court to begin with. Now, one must ask the question why. One must ask the question why we never have this level of competence, this level of cohesion, this level of bipartisan support when it comes to tackling for-profit healthcare, when it comes to tackling gun violence. How come? Do you think that, after the past 15 months, chatters, wake up. Especially after the past 15 months, where overwhelming majorities of the American public wanted a ceasefire implemented in Israel. Many of which understood that the only way to get that was by denying weapons transfers to push Benjamin Netanyahu. In spite of the unlimited faucet of misinformation coming from mainstream media, people still recognized that and wanted it. Did it happen? No, not even a little bit. Clearly, no one cares. There's only bipartisanship within our political class when it comes to doing harm. There's never bipartisanship that they can find when it comes to actually helping Americans. Look at the Lake and Riley Act. I'm going to be talking about that in a little bit. It has a filibuster-proof majority because of senators that signed off on it. The Lake and Riley Act, which I've covered in the past, which will allow law enforcement to permanently detain and deport people under suspicion of doing crimes. So anytime someone looks Mexican, okay, and you suspect them of doing a crime, any crime whatsoever, including petty theft, you can just permanently detain them now. And if they end up being undocumented, it's over. Permanent detention. Doesn't matter if they actually did commit that crime, by the way. That's federal law. What is this? Thank God. TikTok influencers get a freaking job. Queen Tay, get a freaking job, Lamau, and provide zero freaking value to society. Get a real freaking job. Maybe save people from the low IQ attention span. Don't care. It's more damaging than helpful. Sell products that actually matter instead of Temu shit. Now, Hassan provides value. TikTok influencers don't. No, depending on who's looking at this, many people think I provide even less value than TikTok content creators. I think it's silly to be like, oh, I personally don't think TikTok provides value. It doesn't matter. The alternative is what? Becoming an Instagram influencer? You're on Twitch, chatter. Come on. Wake up.
And majority of creators could agree with that. That just sense of,
like, I say this as someone who's not even popping on TikTok. Like, I don't have that much of a TikTok presence at all. The Hasanabi Clips Industrial Complex in the last couple of months have made some decent initiatives, decent efforts. Okay. But my motion on TikTok is pretty hit or miss. Having said that, you know, I still think it's absolutely ridiculous to just undermine an entire platform like this that millions of Americans use that actually does, in some instances, provide something positive. I think it's crazy.
Opportunity, that being lost will be devastating.
So will America's 170 million TikTok...
Also, what's funny is people are talking about how, like, Xiaohongshu is actually, like, banning gay people or whatever. You can't say cisgender on Twitter without being limited, okay, openly. But not only that, but also, no, they're not banning LGBT people on Xiaohongshu. What the frick? It's so funny. It's so funny that people are just like, you know, just running on this. They're entertaining this narrative. It's like, nah, Xiaohongshu, don't look at it yourself. But I've heard that they're banning gay people there, which is hilarious because it's mostly being said by people who hate gay people.
Users wake up on Sunday morning to find their favourite app is dead. Or could he get a stay of execution? It seems Donald Trump doesn't want to be the president whose first act in office is to terminate TikTok. He'd rather be the one who saves it. President Trump first backed the ban based on fears TikTok's Chinese ownership compromised American national security, but now he's changed his mind.
With billions of views, billions and billions of views, they brought me a chart, and it was a record, and it was so beautiful.
This unironically is probably the last saving grace here. It's not even a joke. Like, this straight up is like the only thing that's saving TikTok, most likely.
To see, and as I looked at it, I said, maybe we got to keep this sucker around a little while.
He's indicated he'll extend President Biden's pledge not to prosecute any violation of the ban, provided TikTok is sold to an American owner. But it's not a tune TikTok is dancing to, nor Beijing, which must approve any deal. They refuse to sell. Legal experts think TikTok is unlikely to ignore an act of Congress, and President Trump doesn't have the power to either.
Trump is inclined to do anything he manages to have the logistical and practical power to do, but we're kind of skirting a number of constitutional crises if he does that. His job as chief executive is to enforce and uphold the law, and if he's not enforcing and upholding the law, that's a problem.
Barring a repeal of the law by Congress or an unlikely climb down by Beijing, it'll be tough to keep TikTok alive in America, even for the deal maker in chief. Tom Clark, Sky News.
You mentioned Kevin O'Leary. He's with us now on the telephone. And Sarah, good day to you. You have made no secret of your quest. What's the price tag? How far have you gotten? Kevin.
Yep, sorry. Okay, so what we have here is the clock ticking. And what I think a lot of people don't understand about this situation, which is a derivative of the order, but this is where it gets complex. As of midnight on the 19th, any service provider that could
Yeah, analyst pleads guilty to leaking classified documents about Israel. The analyst was charged with 2 counts of violating the Espionage Act and faced up to a decade in prison for disclosing sensitive information about Israel's response to an Iranian attack. Damn, they packed this guy up real quick. Remember when the CIA analyst leaked details about Israel's nuclear weapons program that America obviously was aware of because they were so aware of it that it's like a part of their, like they said, oh, they're not going to use nukes. Like they checked it off in the box. That was awesome. But hey, God forbid we entertain that notion in public.
Could be an Apple. That could be an Oracle. It could be a video compression technology company.
Yeah, maybe he was maybe he got his brain rotted by TikTok. That's why we got to ban it.
That's being paid as a consulting service. Any of them that keep this thing alive is subject to $5,000 a day fine times 170 million.
I hate this scumbag Kevin O'Leary who's like going on Fox News here to every day to just like improve his own social status and nothing else. First of all, you're a Canadian, okay? Go deal with your own country. Go deal with your own country. Nonsensical, okay? Secondly, you got no motion. He's just on there every day to talk about how scary TikTok is, basically. That's it. And how they must ban it. And the only reason why he's saying that is because he wants his buddies to purchase it potentially.
That's over $1 billion a day. Now, if you're the counsel for any of these companies right now in the last 15 minutes, you're advising your executive and the board that the risk inherent here is the first $1.7 billion of fines is going to be implemented, maybe or maybe not, until the executive order, which is untested.
Yeah, Kevin O'Leary killed a woman in a boating accident and blamed his wife for it.
We don't know if an executive order can override a law from Congress. There's a case in 1937 that was used successfully, but you don't know. So as of right now, unless the company enters into a agreement to be purchased by an American syndicate, and Biden, who's the executive right now, waives for 90 days, this thing goes dark at midnight. Because who?
God, I hate reactionary Canadians even more because like they always come to America and just behave in this ridiculous manner. They always, oh God, it's like, go mess up your own country, man.
Who's going to take on $1.7 billion risk at midnight? Who's going to do that? What counsel would advise? This is the most interesting, complicated, crazy situation I've ever been involved
let me
in.
ask you this, Kevin.
I'm really excited about it.
So it's been said that the CCP out of Beijing.
Like, this is just false. Look at this. 85,000 likes. Chinese app red notice. Removing LGBTQ content and suspending accounts. Hilarious to say this. Not only is it false, but hilarious to say this on Twitter of all places, where there are numerous anti-queer terrorists that are some of the most prominent accounts on the platform and routinely get elevated by the owner of the platform. This is happening in the same week where Facebook's very own Dick Zuckerberg came out and was like, oh yeah, dude, if you want to say like, you know, trans people are mentally ill, then you're totally allowed to do it on Meta. It's just like, what are we doing here? What are we doing? What is this take? What is this statement like? Oh man, the Chinese are anti-gay. Also, I'm anti-gay too, but when the Chinese do it, I hate it. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. That very same account. Remember when PC Gamer used to be about video games? OnlyFans model. BioWare accused of deliberately making Mass Effect Andromeda female characters ugly. Just stumbled upon this old article. We've been having this ugly character gaming culture for almost 10 years now, apparently. Wow. Guess what subreddit is believing it? Of course. The funniest part is they literally didn't see that coming. It's just like all of these people who are anti-gay being like, well, when China does it, it's bad. When they're not even doing it. No one cares. Chinese apps do definitely have a lot of a hair trigger on bans for sure. I mean, TikTok included. Okay. But it's funny to be like, yeah, they're unconditionally banning all of the gay accounts when they're not doing that while you simultaneously are openly anti-gay. It's so fucking stupid. On the application, some of the largest Anti-LGBT. I said something so funny about just lying about this while also being anti-queer on the application that promotes some of the largest anti-LGBT terrorists. Theoretically, if Twitter was owned by a China-based company, would you still want it to be available in the US even though it's turned into a right-wing leaning platform? That's actually a good question. That's a great question. I unconditionally don't want right-leaning platforms. That's part of the reason why I don't have an issue with TikTok, even though it has a healthy diet of misinformation and right-wing nonsense on it as well. It still also heavily not favors, but it still has some semblance of parity with left-wing ideology being broadly represented on it. My issues with all of these platforms stem from the unlimited amount of misinformation that exists in them and the American government not doing anything about it. And I don't even know what the best possible way to move to combat this misinformation is in general. But it's just like Twitter already is owned by, partially owned by Saudi Arabia. Saudi Arabia's wealth fund is the second largest investor in Twitter after Elon Musk. But yeah, Red Note is like, as far as I understand, is like super gay. So that's why it's funny that they're like, oh, they're very anti-LGBT over there. It's just not the case. Why do these people say things and don't back it up with any proof? Because he got 85,000 likes on it, man. Who is going to offer a context note to it? Who's going to offer a context note to it? All the people that write those like content warnings and context notes are all Redditors, and all Redditors hate China. So they love spreading fake shit like this. Yeah, no, they're not. Hey, I'm a Redditor for like 16 years and don't hate China. Okay, you're one of the few. Also, why would you ever admit that you've been a Redditor for 16 years? You couldn't get that information out of me in a CIA black site under torturous conditions. Let's continue.
Could control the algorithm, which would do a lot of negative things here in the U.S. and influence a lot of people in ways that, frankly, we don't want to happen. This past week, some others have argued that the CCP could get access to your passwords. Is that true?
Nobody knows.
Why are you asking Kevin O'Leary this question? Why would he know anything? He's a dumbass boomer. It's like you would have a better chance. You would have a higher statistical probability of encountering a random person that is more aware of like OPSEC and tech related issues if you were to do a man on the street interview where you pose the same question than asking Kevin O'Leary. What does he know? He knows nothing.
Extent of which the algorithm provides data, it's been highly speculated, but you know, there's a reason that Congress put this order in front of the Supreme Court. There's a reason they ruled in favor of it. It's not worth taking the risk. And so the obvious solution is to sell it to an American syndicate as per the order, and then decide whether you're going to rewrite the algorithm completely or fork the code, as it's called in the software industry, which I don't think many of the subcommittees are going to allow.
Okay, all
we
right.
just don't know.
Okay, so I hear all your hesitation. One last question. Thanks for jumping on the phone. Kevin, what is the price tag to get the deal done?
Right now, $20 billion's on the table. Cash, $20 billion.
Will that do it?
Well, I don't know. We're 10 minutes old.
Breaking up on the phone.
Okay.
We heard the important thing. That was
Yeah,
$20 billion. Kevin, thank you. Charge your phone. We'll bring you back.
I'm Steve Doocy. I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.
Hundreds of thousands of people are expected to brave the cold at Monday's inauguration, and we will be braving the cold, including some of the biggest names in the tech world. Nancy Cordes is covering the Trump transition. She's in West Palm Beach, where it's a whole lot warmer there. Nancy, get good morning, and let's all get ready for a shock to the system.
I am recalibrating my outfit choices as well, Gail. Monday is going to be a cold one. And you're right, there is a growing list of tech titans who are going to be getting the VVIP treatment.
I love that Kevin ended it with, well, there's a reason why Congress banned it. And it's funny because he's like, Congress, the most tech illiterate geriatric people on the planet, they famously understand these things. Oh, if Congress in our gerontocracy were to come to this conclusion, then it must be true. Forbes continues to hang out in chat, reporting your takes from days ago. Here's why Red Note will probably be banned like TikTok. I mean, yeah, a lot of people have been saying that.
Treatment on Monday at the inauguration. The latest is the CEO of TikTok. He is going to be joining Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Jeff Bezos, and the CEOs of Apple and Google, who have all been invited to sit right up on the platform where Trump will be sworn in along.
That's a flex, by the way. This is straight up a flex. Our tech oligarchs, everybody, they're all on board. All matter of communications platforms are now completely servile to the great God King Donald Trump.
Alongside Trump family members, former presidents, and cabinet picks. Now, most of these CEOs have been on something of a charm offensive in recent weeks, visiting Trump at Mar-a-Lago, donating millions of dollars to his inaugural committee. And it sure sounded like that's exactly what President Biden was referring to in his farewell speech the other night, when he warned for the first time about what he called the tech industrial complex and a growing American oligarchy. One other interesting development from here in Palm Beach yesterday, Trump announced that he was named.
Bill Gates talks about the recent 3-hour-long dinner he had with President-elect Trump. Gates says the only other person to join from the Trump side was Susie Wiles. Gates said he was impressed with Trump's interest in the issues he discussed, including polio eradication, specifically with cases in Pakistan, Afghanistan, and many African nations in Gaza. Gates also said Trump was excited about the possibility of accelerating approvals for a cure for HIV/AIDS that the Gates Foundation is working on. Gates donated $50 million to the Kamala Harris Super PAC.
Have you met with Donald Trump since the election?
Yeah, I had a chance to go.
It's so funny that like these multi-billionaires just have direct access to the freaking president. Like they just like what are we doing? How is this any different than having lords and monarchs? It's so I don't know. Maybe I'm the friend who's too woke. I don't know, but it just feels crazy to me that they're just like, that's just a guy, man.
Go have a long and actually quite intriguing dinner with him.
What did you discuss? What was intriguing?
Well, we touched on a lot of things. It was over 3 hours. To my surprise, it was, just he and I, his chief of staff, Susie Wiles, and the person who helps manage things for me, Larry Cohen. So the four of us sat there, and it was quite wide-ranging. Global health's the area that I work in, and such amazing things have happened and can happen.
It was not in public before. Yes, it was. It was, but they're just flexing at this point. They're just so much. It was readily available to those who seek out this information, but nowadays I think it's even more in your face. That's the only difference. Like it's just crazy, man. Like people always flex about how like we're above this now. Like we're no longer living in a feudal state when we just have a neo-serfdom, a tech feudalism, if you will, in America. And yeah, the lords are kissing the ring of the new God-ordained monarch.
Damn, this guy's good.